Welcome to Talking in Stations. Today we have special interview with another master of the universe, and this time it's going to be Boat, or as he's known, his full name is DaBigRedBoat. Welcome to the show, Boat.
Hello.
And I know you have your own show, so I'm glad you're doing this one.
Yeah.
I want to actually kind of find out more about you and what it is you've done in Eve and some of the stuff that you bring to the game, because you play it at a very high level and you have been for a long time.
Yeah.
But we do want this to be casual, so I'll try not to use my microphone voice, which...
Don't go ahead. It's fine.
Actually, let's start at the beginning, though. How did you get involved with Eve?
Oh, God. Well, it's been 9 years now.
Wow.
I just looked at a clock recently. Yeah.
A clock?
Or
Are you living
thing,
every
calendar.
half hour at a time?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, pretty much. I don't know. But I looked at the thing. August was 9 years, I think. But yeah, 9 years in August.
What did you play before it? What kind of stuff did you play?
So what got me into... So before gaming even started, not a lot of people know this. I mean, if they watch my show, sometimes I talk about it. But I did wrestling before this. I wasn't much of a gamer. Wrestling, yeah. Collegiate wrestling.
Oh, okay, like the Greco-Roman wrestling.
Yeah. Greco-Roman freestyle, yeah, and folk style. I did that when I graduated. I graduated high school in 2005, and then I went to college for that for a year. And after a year of that, I told myself I'm never going back to school again, and I'm never going to do any kind of athletics again. Like, I was going from running 6 miles a day, 5 miles a day, to I don't ever want to run a foot. You know, I just kind of burn out.
I don't want to exercise anymore.
Yeah, I was like, I'm never exercising again. I got fat really quickly. Like, really, really quickly. I was 185 pounds.
Uh-huh.
You know, like 5% body fat, and I just ballooned up. Well, when I was at home, my brother and one of his friends, when I came home, introduced me to an old Korean ground game called Navy Field. It's a boat game, a little ship game, where you work your way up different ship trees, and you have to grind like crazy. And I played that for a few years, and one of the guys that I met in that game, in a group called RSF, which was the strongest group at the time, was a guy named TiS, who's a really famous GSOL guy in Goons. And we got to know each other real well. And he heard about Eve from Penny Arcade because he was a Penny Arcade member. Penny Arcade, a lot of people don't know this, but that's an old forum, like way old, back in the day kind of video game forum. And they also are the guys who do PAX. It's the Penny Arcade Expo. So if you've ever heard of PAX, then you probably know about Penny Arcade, but you might not know it because of acronyms or whatever. But anyways, so he gets me and some friends of mine from real life, and we get together, and it's like, okay, let's go play Eve. And I'd never heard of Eve. This was 2007. I'd never heard of Goons. I'd never heard of anything. But he said it's a spaceship game like Navy Field. So I was like, oh, excited. So we jump into Eve, and because of Penny Arcade, he introduces me to the corp I'm in now, which is called Merch Industrial, who are like affiliated with Goons because they used to be miners, and they used to ice mine back when Goons didn't really have much. And the ice mining that they did was like essential for Goons survival back then. And it turns out my corp is one of the oldest member corp in the Alliance, besides Goonfleet itself. So to give you an idea of how old that stuff is.
Yeah, because
the original.
Goons before they were Goons were actually in different corporations, right? They didn't just come over and start.
So the way it used to work is with Goons is you had Goon Fleet, and then you would have SIGs or squads like Sigma, Rho, Delta, Gamma, Theta, and those squads were kind of like individual corps would be, and so that's how they treated it. And then member corps were just member corps, and you could participate in things. And when I first got started in Eve, I had no idea what a forum was. Like, I didn't know about forum posting, I didn't know about SA, I didn't know about Penny Arcade. My only post ever on Penny Arcade is still there. It's the one post. It was, hi, I'd like to play Eve with you. Literally, it's all it says. Hi, I'm new. I never posted there again. I never knew what forums were. I didn't know about SA or Reddit or any of that stuff.
Wow.
Because I was like, a sports person, and I got introduced to games just kind of on a whim. I'd play games like, Xbox and Halo and stuff, but never.
Yeah, did you
games.
play like when you were younger?
Yeah. I played like Xbox games with family. Like, we would set up 4 TVs in the house and play with friends and have friends come over. But it was never computer games.
So you would have like a LAN party and have friends over.
Oh yeah. We'd have up to 16 people in one house.
So it was very social, and you were an athlete pretty much.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
and then all of a sudden I became a nerd. I became a fat nerd. uh, yeah, and then I moved. 2006, I moved up to where I'm at now in Kentucky, and went back to or didn't go back to school. I started working, and so when I got into Eve, I really didn't have anything going on but work. So it was like work and Eve. And that was all I did for like a few years.
What was it
and
that
when
hooked you though? Like people.
What hooked me on Eve?
Yeah.
I like playing games with friends. So, like I said, my real life friends got me really involved with Goons. And when we joined Goons, Goons had just taken had just started to push onto the RIT Triangle, if you remember that back then, during the Bob War. And I had joined up with Goons right after Shrike died.
Oh yeah.
And so I started getting like flooded with all the stuff that was going on. And my very first Goon experience was flying a Drake. A month into the game, I had joined Goons. I flew a Drake, and I was belt ratting in 77S. And a very famous Bob pilot and a Lachesis decloaked and killed me, and I couldn't lock him. And I unironically said, "Help! I'm tackled in a belt," in local or Alliance or one of the two, and I got mocked. And they're like, "Well, why don't you shoot back at him?" And I'm like, "I can't lock him." And it was a Lachesis. And I learned much later what a Lachesis was, but yeah, I got solo killed in 77S, belt ratting in a Drake. I don't even have to kill mode because it never generated. Like my oldest kill mode was a Blackbird.
Well,
and...
maybe it never happened. Maybe it was a dream.
It happens. It happens.
But I like that you asked for help, and I like that that was a lesson that you still remember.
Yeah, because I used to get we mock people for that now, right? Like a guy screams "Help! I'm tackled in the belt." We just kind of laugh at him, and we make jokes about that to newbies. And that was something I did my very first week in.
Yeah.
Well,
something about when Shriek got killed, that's when Goonswarm and Bob were going at it in the south, I think. And
yeah,
I think that Titan was it was the second Titan killed.
No, it was the first Titan killed in combat. It was like the fifth Titan in the game.
The first Titan
all the other ones had been logged off.
The first Titan killed was not in combat. It was...
that was, I don't remember the name of it, but it was a guy from ASCII, or Askin. And he had logged off, but got aggressed by a smart bomb.
ASCN, yeah. And
ASCN, and then they went and found him, and Bob killed him. That was the first Titan to die.
Yeah, he was logged off, so he wasn't there when it happened.
And then the next two that died was like a Leviathan and an Erebus, and those died because they were logged off. And then another one that died because he, again, logged off in a safe spot was the Ragnarok from Mercenary Coalition. Thals of Doom. That AAA killed, that famous AAA audio, where he's screaming. Yeah,
I'm gonna have that dude on the show soon. He's really good. It's good to listen to him. Anyway.
Yeah, it's always funny to see that Titan, in Mercenary Coalition active in bridging, because that was the first times I heard about Titan dying. Yeah. And then of course Shrike died. He was the first one who died in combat.
But Shrike was the leader of Band of Brothers, your mortal enemy at the time.
Well, Shrike was Sir Mole.
Yeah,
and we'll get back to him later because I got a story about him.
Dude, great. Actually, I bet you have a ton of stories, and we can go 2 hours. I don't care.
Oh yeah, we can go as long as you want. I've told some of these before, but
I didn't want to say Shriek was actually bumped like crazy, and at the time,
the great thing about Shrike,
yeah,
you have to remember too, is he jumped into Doomsday, right? Mm-hmm. He came in to Doomsday, and he cloaked on a gate, and when he cloaked on that gate, a very famous merch industrial pilot named Atrin, who is probably the hero of Merchie, they call him, had an interceptor. Back when Goons didn't really have interceptors, he had one. And he burnt straight at Shrike and decloaked him after screaming "Shrike's on this gate." And this is back in the day. This is right after a patch had happened. To take it back a step further, for Eve history-wise, I wasn't around this back then, but Titans could jump in Doomsday, be at full cap within seconds, and jump back out. It didn't have that 10-minute Doomsday stuck in system timer.
Yeah.
Until Shrike did his Doomsday. And he thought it was like the old way.
Right.
And so he Doomsdays and can't jump right back out, so he cloaks, thinking nobody noticed him. Well, someone decloaked him, and then he gets bubbled, and then of course, that's the famous Shrike death.
Yeah, from their view, they got bumped a bunch of times by all these little ships that were coming at him.
Well, yeah,
that desynced
dudes
him.
kept slamming into him.
Yeah.
And back then, the Dictor bubble change also came into effect. Back then, before this, Titans had their hitbox was on the outside of the Titan, so that 12-kilometer radius. So when they smart bombed, an 11-kilometer avatar had a 21K smart bomb. so no bubble could bubble it because it would be, the bubble is too small, like a regular Dictor bubble. But they changed the hitbox to the inside, so he could be bubbled with his 10-kilometer smart bomb, and that's how they were able to keep him bubbled. So yeah, there was a bunch of changes that led to that death that weren't around before then.
Right,
So.
And actually, it's funny because this is something else that I've been contemplating lately, and I probably will write about it, and that is evolution and how you have to basically evolve quicker than your opponents. Because
that happens a lot.
Yeah, as changes come, I look at how Pandemic Legion got kicked out of Fountain by IT Alliance when Dominion Sovereignty came, and Bob or IT at the time was just better adapted. They'd kind of practiced more and was able to wipe out Pandemic Legion.
I don't think that was the case.
Well, that is from their point of view.
Well, from my experience inside leadership channels, it was more of apathy. But we can get to that later.
Okay. Yeah. This isn't really about history, although you're full of history, and that's great. Cause
so back to me. So when I was a newbie, I liked Drakes. It just looked cool. I always zoomed way in and saw a Drake, and I was always fascinated. And so my first op I ever went on, I took a Drake. Mm-hmm. And another bit of history is the Matani was on that op. He wasn't the CEO then. He was just kind of like a propaganda officer kind of person, like a director. And he told me to go camp the fucking gate with the frigates because my Drake didn't belong on the fleet.
He got told.
And I literally sat on the gate with a bunch of newbie frigates and did nothing while all these battleships shot a POS. So that's what kind of got me started. I didn't see my first Titan for almost a year until the Delve War. And I didn't even see it then because my computer was so potato and the game was so bad that my first experience getting doomsdayed was in a battleship. Mm-hmm. I was black screened. I saw the damage notification, and then I saw myself die. But I didn't see myself. All I saw was a black screen, and I died.
You got doomsdayed.
I got AoE doomsdayed twice.
Yeah.
I survived the first one.
Back then, doomsdays were area of effect. They wiped everything off the...
Yeah. And I couldn't even see the grid. It was my first battleship. I was in an armor shield tanked Raven in Delve, and Suis had told us to jump. This is way before I was an FC, or even thinking about FC. And I jumped, and it was hilarious. I didn't even see myself. I just saw black screen for an hour, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Hey, Shrike's doomsdayed," and I was like, "Oh, wonder what Shrike looks like." And I had no idea what an avatar was. I didn't even see it. Just dead. And then it's like, "Oh, I'm taking damage now." I see the damage notification. Oh, I lived. And they're like, "Oh, here comes another Titan. Here comes I believe it was Orange something, and a Ragnarok." Forget his name, but anyways, Orange something, Ragnarok, and he doomsdayed, and then I died, and I was like, "Oh, look, I'm dead."
Well, this is interesting because twice now you're pulling names out of the past that are it's 10 years old, 9-10 years old. You have an amazing memory. I
do. I remember everything.
I have picked up on this, and this is why, even though you have this very happy exterior, and let's talk about that first. Is you kind of have this exterior where you're unflappable and you're kind of laughing all the time. You almost look like you're always in a good mood, which isn't possible. But
it is possible.
What's going on there? Like, is that a defense against teasing or something?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I was a fat kid up until high school, right? So until high school, I was a fat kid, and then I got myself into an incredible build for wrestling and football, and I was very muscular, very low body percent fat. And I remember when I was in 6th grade, a kid made a joke about me not having a six-pack. I had one roll, and it always drove me nuts. And so I always just smiled because it drove people nuts. Mm-hmm. If I didn't let them think it bothered me, right, I just smiled. And so until high school, I had to deal with a lot of bullying, right? And then high school came around, and I just got big, right? I got muscular, strong, fast. So I didn't get touched. Like, no one fucked with me all through high school up to college. And
what'd that feel like?
Laughing exterior, I don't know. It was weird.
Now let's stop there for a second. You're kind of made fun of for a while, and you smile in defense of that. Then you have a whole different physique because kids grow into different bodies.
I just became a happy person. Like, I got to know everyone. I had this obsession with knowing everyone, and it kind of transitioned into Eve.
So you didn't turn into a bully on the reverse side of that. Okay.
I became kind of everyone's acquaintance. Mm-hmm. In high school, we had 3,300 students when I was a senior in the school, and I knew most people. I would say all the teachers. All the staff, most of the students. I just knew everyone. I would walk around and just say hi to everyone. I was friendly with everyone, even people that didn't like me. It drives people nuts. I tell you from experience, there's a couple of guys in Goons that can't stand me, but it drives them nuts that I don't let it bother me. And I just smile at them and just go on like they don't exist. But I do that in Eve. So
Mhm.
I have this obsession with talking to everyone. I talk to everyone. They call me the unofficial diplomat as a joke. Like they won't let me be a diplomat. Like Cyan never would.
Yeah.
But I still talk to everyone of like from okay, this is what goons are up to. This is what I'm up to. What are you gonna tell me? You know, I act like a diplomat. It's hilarious.
Well, diplomats trade in information, right? That's one of the things
Right.
they do. They
That's like an obsession of mine. I have to know everything. So I
and
talk to everyone.
and it's remarkable how much you know. I think, and if it hasn't been known in public, I'll say it right now. I asked Boat at one point. I was like, I got to talk to you every day because you know so much about what's going on out there. You know more than the entire INN staff.
Yeah, and the thing is too is I'm not a diplomat. I'm not a spy guy. I dabbled in spying as a joke a while back, just to see if I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have an excellent memory, like really good memory. So when it comes to remembering things, I remember everything. I could tell you all of Eve's history. I know I sat for 2 4-hour sessions with the guy that wrote the Eve history book because he wanted to know Goon history, and I just told him all of it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, the guy that wrote the book everyone likes about History of Eve or whatever I think it's the name of it.
Yeah.
Andrew Groen.
Yeah, Andrew Groen. You're right.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I sat with him and went through all of Goon history.
That's great that you helped him
I
out.
told him a lot of Eve history too. Yeah. So, but yeah. So for me, that was that. But something a lot of people don't know is I didn't start off like going from like just playing the game to FCing. I got a crossroads. So when I joined Murchie, one of my crossroads was, what do you want to do? And the thing is with Goons, Murchie has a tradition. A lot of people think of Goons now as pap links and have to go on ops and have to do this, or you know, Mittens always makes the joke on the meta show of service guarantees citizenship and very serious business. But Murchie's always had a policy: do what you want. It's a very strict policy. Do whatever you want. So when I first joined, I had the choice. I could do Spec Ops, which was Suis and his group of like quote unquote slaves. He was a cult of personality, so they just followed him around like a puppy. And they just did whatever he wanted to do. And in his case, it was sometimes mining ops, mine me a Titan, mine me a Super, or this is 9 years ago, 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could do Black Ops. Those were my two choices. And the allure of Black Ops was it kind of reminded me of wrestling. So wrestling, the idea behind wrestling is it's an individual sport with a team concept. So you go out there and you wrestle individually, and you do well individually, your team's going to do well. And that's how Black Ops transition felt. It was like, if I do really good at shutting down this system or camping this gate or getting 400 kills this day because I camped this gate and everyone jumped into me,
Mm-hmm.
that my team is going to do better. And Black Ops was infamous back then. This is before Bomber's Bar, before pretty much anyone did this. I think Mercenary Coalition did this as an alliance, but we would deploy to like Delve when Goons were still in Faith of Ballas. And this is before, you didn't have Black Ops battleships, you didn't have jump bridges, you didn't have any way to really move around. We would move in and live there. We would live out of cans. We'd live out of a carrier Thanatos that would have like extra stuff, and we'd put all our loot in the Thanatos and then jump it out once a week. We would live in Western Delve when it was believed you couldn't get past Null, right?
Yeah, you get caught at a gate camp or something.
Right, and we would live in I remember I lived in Western Delve for a long time. And we would always go ahead of Goons. Like, we would get there before Goons would even go. I remember I lived in Fountain for a little bit with Black Ops, and we fucked with Bob and Fountain for 6 months, and that was hilarious. And I was known to be dumb. I would lose ships in dumb ways. But my favorite ship back then was a Falcon. I loved flying Falcons.
Were they the jammers, right?
Yeah. The
because
ones
those are frustrating to opponents.
Yeah, it would just like, you would sit there cloaked on a gate, and they would come through, you would decloak tackle, and then you jam it, and this way if they light a sino, you could just get out. But this is there was no real counter dropping back then. It's nothing like it is today. It's nasty today.
So there was no counter dropping back then?
You would know they were forming a fleet. Like, there was no prevalence of Titans. There was like 5 Titans in the game back then. Like Bob had like 5 Titans across all time zones, period. It wasn't like you had endless jump bridge networks and 100 Titans to pick from. You had one staging system, maybe. You had Bob renters, because back then, remember, Band of Brothers had all those renters. Like EXE was still considered a part of Bob, but they weren't really Bob. You had like Bob and everyone else.
Well, back then they were called pets, right?
Right, yeah, pets. Yeah, it wasn't even renters. It was just called pets. So you'd go back and Black Ops would disrupt pets.
Yeah.
You know, Bob's trying to engage a war in catch, and we're back in the back fucking with their pets.
Well, pets were a little different because they were kind of responsible for having a little bit of a military, like a militia.
Oh yeah,
Whereas,
they had to take care of themselves. Yeah.
yeah, renters, on the other hand, don't have to care about military at all. They can just mine and do industry and stuff like that.
But Black Ops, yeah, that was my favorite time in Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't know much about Black Ops because it's kind of gone underground in a long time. It's not really as famous as it once was, but a really famous bit of it was when, if you remember a guy named Penismash from PL.
Yeah, he's still around, right?
And Elitist Ops.
What's that?
They were Elitist Ops.
Oh, uh-huh.
They were an offshoot, splinter of Black Ops. They were the guys who were doing Black Ops when Goons kind of got fucked over by when Goons got robbed. And
Well,
that's
hold on.
when-
So this is what you're saying here is the history of
Oh,
Pandemic Legion is a splinter group of Goonswarm.
not PL, but this one corp, Elitist Ops.
Right, but they came
So
from
Penis-
Goonswarm.
Yeah, they were in Goon. He was an original Goon.
Mhm.
Yeah. He used to do Black Ops with Goons. I had stopped doing Black Ops work at this point, and Penismash, because I'd moved to FC, and Penismash was in Black Ops along with a few others. And when Darius came back to kind of take over Goons, he got into a slap fight with Black Ops guys and told them that you need to listen to what I tell you or get the fuck out. And they said, okay, bye. They went and joined PL. And that's what made Elitist Ops. So yeah, that's some old history. But yeah, so I loved Black Ops. That was like something that a lot of people know about it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So Black Ops is something that you were into a while ago, but then you got into FCing, right?
Yeah, I got into FCing because of a guy named Skavik. So they called him the Human Robot. He's the guy responsible for Goon's first Titan loss. But he wasn't known to lose. And the first time he did lose, I think he quit the game. Just straight up left. Like when it didn't work. But he was known as a robot because he was precision. I would say he was a better FC than V was back then. V and Shadu. I would say he's better than both.
Really?
At the time.
Oh.
Oh yeah, easily. He was just that good. Like everyone relied on. Like back in the day when Russians were feared. You know, like Xdeath was a feared guy. Like you wouldn't want to fuck with Xdeath back then, or you wouldn't want to fuck with Sermol. Skavik I would put as one of the top. And so I learned from him. And I remember he told me to do before I did my first op was like, look, the way it works is you don't just get handed the keys and go FC. You need to go try it. You know, take a roaming fleet out and see what it's like. And if you get kills and people come on your next one, then you know that you can do it. And that's what it was. I went roaming in Geminate when Goons invaded Geminate once, and when Atlas was still there.
Yeah. Talk about that pressure. You're starting out. What did it feel like?
There was no pressure. It was fun. I rode bikes. You know, back when most ops were considered only ops when it was serious. This is before I think even Goons had Jabber to use. It was just like, hey, let's go do a thing. Or
before Jabber, what were you using for voice communication?
we used TeamSpeak 2.
Oh, okay.
That's how old I'm talking. I remember, to give you a little bit about Skavik in my history in Goons, I was up at like 4 a.m. I couldn't sleep. And you hear, like, I'm in a chat room and I forgot that I'd left TeamSpeak open. And I hear Skavik go, everyone log in. And apparently on Jabber, he had told people to get on for like a login trap against Bob. And I just happened to be in the room. So I logged in my armor-plated, shield-tanked Raven and got on a Dread kill mill, my first cap kill mill. But yeah, that was Skavik. Skavik was just really good. And so I took over, I started FCing, and I was starting to learn the ropes. I remember I got on my first Nyx kill mill with him while I was a newbie FC because we bumped the Nyx out of a POS using Typhoons. I remember I became obsessed. A lot of people don't know this, but I had this obsession with killing capitals. There's an inside joke in Goons called the Truffle Pig. It drives me nuts. I don't like that name, but the people use it.
They call they call you that.
They call me a Truffle Pig because
Uh-huh.
I can find a super kill anywhere, or used to. But when I actually used to take it serious, I would just go find Titan kills and super kills. But before I killed my first Titan, I had this obsession with trying to catch them because I almost caught an avatar once. I was a probing back when probing was AIDS. I mean, you think probing's bad now? It's so much better. So back then you would drop one probe per planet, and you only had one probe to work with, and you'd have to activate them kind of individually, and you'd have to move that probe every time you would try to couldn't even describe the cancer that was. But the problem with probing is it would take so long. So you would probe out a Titan, and if he was nanofit, which all Titans were back then, you would land on him with your dictor as he was warping out. So like you would get the probe result, land on him, he'd be already in warp. That like 20 seconds of transition, it would just take so long. And I remember I chased an Erebus straight up. He literally was warping to safe spots straight up. And he had like 30 of them, and we never caught him. It was during they were trying to defend a Sino Jammer, and so I was trying to catch him, and it became an obsession. I wanted to catch a Titan. But it also became an obsession with not losing ships. I mean, you might know me nowadays as someone who's made fun of for losing fleets and Asakai and all that, but
we'll get to that.
Yeah, I had this obsession back in when I was a newbie FC with jammer takedowns. I don't know if you were playing the game back then, but back then fleets never really got bigger than 100 unless it was some serious shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that 100 versus 100 would be everything. You know, not just your battleships. Maybe you had 30, 40 battleships, but that was back in the days of Aroma Red battleship fleets.
Mm-hmm.
Jammer takedowns were a struggle because you had to surprise someone to get their jammer down, because if they started gunning the POS, especially Bob were good at this, if they were gunning the POS, you might not get that jammer down without a lot of losses. And until you got that jammer down, you know, you weren't going to be able to do anything, and it was time zone warfare. And I remember I became obsessed with never losing a ship and taking a jammer down. It became kind of a famous thing for me. I was known to hit jammers and not lose ships. So I could kill a jammer and get out and not lose anyone. And it was very surprising because back then you expected to lose battleships on jammers. It was just they were designed to kill you. So it became like an obsession, like a little game of mine, to be perfect. And I remember I missed an avatar I was trying to catch because he jumped to a beacon, and I didn't have a dictor. I had a dictor who had one bubble, and we had one bubble to kill him before he jumped through a jump bridge. Because Titans could jump bridges back then. And we bubbled him. We dropped, I think we dropped a couple of dreads and battleships, and he got out in armor. Jumped through the jump bridge. It was gone because we didn't have any more dictor bubbles.
Capital offense now.
So like 3 or 4 times I missed Titans. And I couldn't catch them. And, you know, it wasn't like a lot of Titans were dying to the game. I mean, Shrike had died a couple times in Max. And my first Titan kill mill happened against EXE. I have the audio log.
Executive Outcomes?
Executive Outcomes, yeah. Their avatar pilot named Hurley.
Hurley. Oh, yeah.
You know the name because Brave Newbies killed him.
I think he's died 3 times, hasn't he?
He has now 3 times, yeah. But he most infamously died recently to Brave Newbies and BL. They caught him being dumb. Yeah, he's owned by someone else now. But the original Hurley sounded like a robot. Like he was always in outer space. Like it was a really weird sounding voice. And we had been on an op for like 8 hours, shooting POS, doing other things. It was a long op. And Shadu convoed me, because this is back when we were trying to kill Bob. And this is right before the Band of Brothers Solve Drop, like name steal. And Hurley was in the system of in the system in Curse, and he was known to warp to a station in Doomsday, like AoE Doomsday. And PL was like, yo, let's bait him. And Lady Scarlet was one of the US time zone FCs, and she was around. And, you know, I'd always dreamt of, you know, catching a Titan. I wanted to catch one. So we had this chance to get the Saboteur. And Shadu's like, look, we're going to bait him. We're going to get Doomsdayed. And you guys are going to provide the damage to kill it. So I had a 200-man fleet. And this is back when 200-man fleets was huge. I mean, I had a lot of dudes. And if you listen to the audio of this, it's somewhere. You'd have to look it up.
Yeah, it's a famous audio. We'll play it on this recording.
Where Shadu laughs. And then you hear him talk, and then you hear him laugh again. And the first laugh is because a French guy bubbles the Titan in a Hector after the Doomsday goes off. The second set of laughing was when 200 goons poured into local. When local was like at 30. You know, they had nobody to protect him. And the audio of me doing this is very unflattering. It's like me screaming for like 8 minutes. But it was an achievement in Eve because it was the first Titan to ever be killed by just subcaps. And the only reason it worked is Lady Scarlet had a scout 2 jumps out, but she didn't have her eyes 3 jumps out. And we hit our entire fleet 3 jumps out, big battleship fleet. And no one had any idea.
So you're 1 jump further than her reconnaissance.
The only reason we got the kill was because the Doomsday glitched. I was on grid in a vigil as the Doomsday went off. I was 210 kilometers away from the avatar. Doomsday goes off. My vigil survives. I burn it straight at the Titan and slam into the Titan right as we spike local. I didn't have a prober. It was the only character I had on grid at the time. So I was the only warp in. And he was like, 200-300 off the station. So we didn't have, like, the only dictator was this one Hector who was dying. And if it wasn't for us being able to get the, warp back in, because PL didn't have any dictators or Hectors with him, we wouldn't have had it bubbled. And so I slammed my vigil into him. The Doomsday doesn't kill me for some reason. It misses. And then Goons warp in on top of it. And we bumped it like crazy, and then we killed it. And it was an achievement because, again, this is a Bob Titan, quote unquote, because it was EXE. I forget what they used to call them. There was a name for them. They didn't call them pets, but they had like an official term for them. It was Bob and then something else.
Oh, the Greater Bob Alliance or something? Greater Bob...
GMA or something like that.
Yeah, Greater Bob Associates or Greater Bob Friends. I should know this.
Something like that. I don't remember. But anyway...
they were allies.
So yeah, and we killed it. And it was during U.S. time when Lady Scarlet was supposed to be feared. And I remember a famous quote from a goon where he was like, "Fuck, I knew I should have went on boats. POS, shut up." Because I was known for shooting POS back then. And people hated my ops because I just shot POS all day. I was the only FC. All the other FCs quit. Like Darius Johnson goes, "Boat, you're the FC now." Yeah, so that happened. That was my first Titan kill.
Well, let me get back to you.
Oh, sorry.
That's great. This is great because this is what we want. I mean,
right.
The amount of stories that you have in your head, we got to get those out. So record
sorry.
them so future generations can look back on the early...
I could tell you another one too here real quick. My first Dread loss, or my first Dread bomb I participated in.
Uh-huh.
So again, I was a newbie FC, and at the time Scavit quit. Suis quit. Suis used to be involved in some stuff in real life, and I don't want to get into that because that's up to him, but if you want to talk about it.
Just let's pause for a moment. Sue is a very charismatic early Goonswarm guy. He's the one that you see playing the Little Bees song.
Yes.
With Darius Johnson behind him and a bunch of goons around the table.
He's now in CO2.
Right.
Very, very famous because he was one of the guys that helped organize the war against goons.
Right. When he was really the symbol of goons for a time back then.
Right. He was a face. A lot of people liked him. I didn't like him.
Yeah.
I met him a couple times in real life, especially one notable time in Paris, and he was chill in real life. But in video game, I couldn't stand him because I didn't like the way he approached the game. It's like everyone was his little pet or his slave, and it reminded me too much of Bob, and I hated it. It drove me nuts. But so I tried to be different than him in the way I did it. And
wait, why does that drive you nuts? Because that drives you nuts. You're motivated to attack Bob. You don't like
in the sense that like with Sir Mole had this about him. Sir Mole thought he was always better than everyone, and by better than everyone in the sense that there was nobody that he would like. All the recordings I have from him talking and the way he would act and the way he approached the game was almost like, okay, EXE aren't allies, they're pets. If you're not Bob, you're not good enough to be considered even a friend. And I always played video games with friends, right? Like real life friends. So I would never look at, like, allies now, give me an example, Stain Russians are good friends of mine. And I would never look at them as like, oh, they're just whatever. They're just video game nerds. I view them as in-game friends first. Right, and so when it comes to like if like Stain Russians came us tomorrow and say, "Hey, Boat, we need your help," I'd be like, "Yeah, sure, I got you, buddy, no problem." And that's the thing that Suis I don't think ever did. He always had this call of personality where people kind of like flocked to him, but he was kind of nutty. I mean, he at the time, as when I knew him, he was on cocaine a lot, and he was just nuts.
Right, but what I want to get to is your buttons that were being pushed, because obviously it sounds like what motivates you is having friendships, and then what makes you mad and motivates you to kill people.
The way people treat others,
is disrespect or entitlement. The feeling of it.
Not because the way I view the game too is it's a video game, right? So it's Space Pixels, but I like to play with the personality and the psychology of the game, right? So the out of game experience that Eve brings, right? So when I deal with Eve, it's do I like this guy or do I know? And I'm almost like everyone. I'm one of those types that likes everyone. There's not really anyone that I really dislike. But if I do dislike you, I'm going to murder everything. But in terms of the game.
Is that the real Eve, or do you think they're both legitimate?
Oh, they're both legitimate in Eve because that's the way Eve is. Like you can't play Eve without getting involved outside of the game.
Mm-hmm.
An example right now, I have Jabber on this monitor over here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's Discord. Over there's Skype. Oh, right here, Skype. And I probably have a way to talk to anyone I need to at Eve through any of those three things, you know?
You're constantly
and those are all out of Eve. I don't have Eve open, and I can talk to everyone about what's going on within an instant, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to be in Eve to do it. And I think that's what makes Eve, you know, special, and that's what I think is the draw to it. But like I said, I like to get my fingers in everything. And one of the things is when I became the quote-unquote head FC, it's because everyone else quit. We had no other FC. I was the only FC. Like skirmish commander, nowadays we have programs to prevent like something like this from happening. But if you can imagine, you're an NC. Imagine if Vince was the only FC. Period. No other FCs. 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we had was me for a period of like 6 months. And this was a period when AAA was trying to kill us. When Nink was trying to kill us and was being paid to kill us by the Aluminum Tycoon back then.
The Aluminum Tycoon.
You don't remember this guy?
No, I don't.
Oh, this is a good story too. Gosh, history. So I was the only FC versus a guy, and I don't remember his name right now, but X-Death knew of him. The Russian community forums used to be very, very big deal. Russians never talked on Evo. Evo was like the Eve forums before Kugu and Reddit existed, where you would just chat and talk shit. Well, you had a Russian version of that, and the Russian forums were famous because a guy came along who was an aluminum tycoon in Russia.
In real life.
Almost like an oligarch, yeah. Millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. And decides he wants to play Eve. And by wanting to play Eve, he dropped $100,000 on the game. He bought 5 Titans and 4 mothership characters, and the Titans bought them off.
Was he in Red Overlord?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, he bought their whole capital fleet.
Yeah. Got banned because all that was illegal. Then dropped another 100,000 in Plex legally, and bought them all again. Yeah, that's this guy, and this guy wanted us dead. Why? Because Nink at the time had an area of Eve where a 10 of 10 complex would spawn. They could get you a lot of money, and it would only spawn once a day, right after downtime. And whoever controlled that would get paid $1 billion to $10 billion a day, depending on the type of loot it dropped. It was a 10 of 10 complex. They were like 1 of 2 in the game, right? And it was a static one, so it never moved. It was always there. And we started fighting Red Overlord over it. And that's what caused the split. You know, like that's when Red Alliance fell apart, and then a big split happened. And the Aluminum Tycoon didn't like that, so he hired Nick. Started paying him real life bucks, just FC, to kill us. Him and AAA, and it was us versus them, and it wasn't going well. I mean, you're talking about almost, I would say, like the bought and paid for Russians. So this is before the current Stain Russians. So you had the old Stain, who were feared for their dreads, AAA, and Red Overlord versus us. And I was the only FC. So I'd go to work, come home, and FC for like 6-7 hours. And it became crazy. And I remember the very first time I got involved in dreads, at AAA was trying to shoot a POS, and I got a hold of the Tau Ceti Federation TCF FC, and I got a hold of another allied FC, and we're like, okay, we're gonna go balls deep, and I ordered everyone.
We're gonna try hard, in other words.
Oh, sorry, yeah, that might not be a good word to use. This, but yeah, so the decision came down to me. Do we try it or not? And it was right before downtime, and I said, okay, let's do it. So we dropped sniper dreads back when this wasn't a real thing. 180k dreads, and there's a video of this. It's really awesome. Cartoon made it. One of the old Goon CEOs. They warp in 6 dreads on top of us, 6 Pulse Revelations. We nuked those, and we proceeded to pick off their dreads, but their dreads could barely hit us, where we were doing like double their damage. And even though we were outnumbered, I think we traded like 19 dreads. We lost for like 30 dreads of theirs, and we won the timer. And it was just famous because the decision came down to me when I was barely a real FC at this time. Like, I was the only guy. Darius is like, if you want to do it, go. And I dropped on him, and we won. And then we did it again. We refined the doctrine more and did it again later versus Band of Brothers and just stomped them. We killed like 60 dreads, all in all. Like, it was a huge number. I don't even know it was 60, maybe 40, but it was just a lot for back then. And we lost like 5. And it just proved a concept. So, yeah.
Well,
I remember those.
Here's a little something for you. When I first got to when I first got to the Matani.com to actually become in charge of the news and all that, I was coming in with a pretty good record. And I knew that they wanted me to be there, and I was looking forward to, doing this as a new project. But I think I'd heard an interview with you and Asher Elias on his show. It's a great interview, a lot of history there. And I think you said something that was not really that bad about Lady Scarlet, but it made me mad because I was like,
oh, yeah, I remember you told me about this.
I was like, no way. So then my first meeting with Matani, I didn't have many meetings with him directly. Now I have them all the time. But at the time I sat with him and I said, all right, you want me to work for you? I'll work for you, but you need to tell Boat not to say stuff like that. And
yeah, so this
wait. Let me just tell you on the record, he said, what? Boat's a war hero. So he said, no way. I'm not telling him to do anything. Boat's a war hero. And this must be where it comes from.
I can say some stuff about that relationship, but I'll say that for later. But yeah, so the Lady Scarlet thing, I don't know if I ever told you, but I might have told you this, is that back in the day, I only had you never had live intel. Spying was like a sacred, light the candles and make a star, like a pentagram, and only the dark inner circle knew about the spy stuff. And I remember one of our spy guys was eventually a Goon CEO named Cartoon, came to me and would give me audio logs of her FC. And she always had this really high-pitched, really angry, bitter-sounding voice. And she always talked down to people, and it just had this really nasty personality. And the way she approached conversations with people in local, or I would see Alliance chat logs, and the way she would talk drove me nuts. I just couldn't stand her. And when I was a newbie in Goons, one of the biggest running jokes was to mock the fact that she was a big woman at the time. Because we had these pictures that were shared with us from the Bob forums of her, a Band of Brothers meeting at the Hoover Dam.
Yeah, that was a destructive influence meeting, yeah.
Right. And so that was the only thing we had to go by. And so me as
it was a very unflattering picture.
Right, and me as an ignorant person back then. I was a lot younger then. I was 22 years old, 23 years old, Mm-hmm. I was rather ignorant to social cues with that stuff. Because I was a dumb frat boy who made jokes like that like it was no big deal, Mm-hmm. And to me it was just a joke. But it became serious one time only that I ever take it serious with the joking. And it got me banned in local was she was just being an ass. And I said something a quip to her in local about, is this the fleet that's designed to carry you from system to system? And she got me banned. Their whole fleet white knighted for her, and it got me banned for a week. And I stopped making the jokes for a long time after that until I'd heard from her recently, and I made another joke, and that's when you got mad at me. But yeah, and then I met her at FanFest, and she was an amazing person. Completely different than what I was used to in the game. You know? I sat and talked to her for an hour, and completely different personality than I'd ever imagined. So yeah, it was a awakening.
It's important to remember that people start this game when they're very young or different, and they change, because it's been 10 years. People change in...
Oh yeah. If you want to have a chuckle, I used to have terrible grammar, terrible writing. And it wasn't until I started writing on goonfleet.com and on Essay and different forums that my grammar improved enough that I felt confident writing essays in college. That's something that no one knows, I don't think. This might be a first for interviews.
Well, we made news.
I have dyslexia, and I was always terrified of reading up until about 6-7 years ago. I hated reading. Couldn't read. I could read, but I was bad at it.
I wonder if that's why your memory is better than usual.
Maybe, but my memory's always been good.
Okay.
It's always been very good.
I never people compensate with different things.
I have dyslexia, but I was also ungifted.
Wow.
I have a 139 IQ. So my memory's...
What, you couldn't score that last point for 140?
No, I couldn't! And I don't want to go into that. I used to get mocked when I was a kid because I was in gifted classes 1 day a week out of 5. And I was in SLD, which is, SLD, Slow Learning Disability class 1 day a week. And the normal class is 3 days a week.
So you're basically taking classes for learning disabilities, and at the same time you're taking GATE. Amazing.
Yes.
What a contradiction.
So anyways, because of writing on forums and you have guys like Dead Tier, other goons that would go on you like crazy for using U with a U, letter U, and doing like texting version of typing on forums. I started having to use commas and be grammatically correct, so I taught myself how to do that. Then I went to college again for teaching, and ironic enough. And yeah, I can write a 20-page essay in a few minutes. No big deal. Just start writing and it's perfectly done, and then just have it grammar checked a little bit. And yeah, so I would say not a lot of people might know this, but yeah, if it wasn't for like Eve and forums and all that, I probably would have never have done that.
That's amazing. And you, if you don't mind me asking, went on to become a teacher, is that right?
Yes, I have a degree in elementary education, bachelor's degree.
So what do you use that for?
What do I use it for? Teach elementary. I do substitute teaching right now.
Okay.
But I can teach kindergarten to 5th grade.
Do you, is that where some of your persona and artwork come from? Because you do your artwork for your show.
Yes, I do it by hand. I do MS Paint, and yes. And when I design lessons and stuff, yeah, I would get pretty goofy with it.
But you have the hat, right? You have the pirate hat?
Yeah, it's over here. That was a gift, actually, before FanFest. An old Diplo, Goon Diplo made it for me, for a costume.
So how much of this persona has been evolved from Eve, or were you always this kind of jovial person with props and stuff like that?
Eve, yeah, definitely Eve. No, I never. I was always very shy, like very like right now I'm on video, right? And I would say anywhere from 10 years ago until 7 years ago, I would have never done this, ever.
And as far as streaming for the Imperium News, you're one of the leaders in that channel, kind of helping other people get their streams up and going. Your branding is solid. You have like a whole look. You have a persona. Yeah. You have a presence on screen.
That's a persona, by the way. I mean, you probably know this, but not a lot of people that will see this might not know this. But yeah, that's a persona. The dumb idiot boat that laughs and does dumb things. That's not really me. The smiles and all that. That's not. I would say it's not always me.
So what is really you then, or what is the?
I don't know. That's the hard part. So like with me, so I'm in stream I'm considered very loud, very screamy, very vocal, but I like quiet. I don't watch TV loudly. I like reading. I can go probably after this I'll probably go lay in my bed and just sit there quietly and read till I fall asleep. So I don't do loud. Loud drives me nuts. I don't know if it's something that it's like the psychologist never figured it out, but I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but it's if you're driving in a car and people have problems where if they're not in control, right? Loud noise in a car can cause them to freak out. So that's me. Like I have to drive the car or have it kind of quiet, or I'll freak out. And like the only person I can ride in a car with is my father, and I have like 50 people I've tried to ride with. It's hard for me to ride with people in a car unless it's quiet. And so when it comes to video game like Eve, when people see me stream, I'm always very loud. I have noisy music and there's loud and this and boom and boom and ops, or I'm talkative and I hate silence on ops and it drives me a little nuts. But in real life, I like it quiet.
But isn't that something to do with, and this will sound worse than I really mean it, but isn't that kind of a characteristic of autism? Like you can't handle sound?
It's interesting you say that because my girlfriend has autism. But no, It's not. I've actually had that checked, and yeah, it's not autistic. It's weird because, like I said, I have the high IQ, I have dyslexia, but the psychologist kind of they came up with it. This is a while ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. The idea is it's a control thing. I have to be in control almost, and so if I'm not in control of the situation, then external noise and things can cause a problem.
They irritate you.
Yeah. Which is weird. It's weird. I wouldn't say I have OCD. Maybe
we're all weird, and we all have characteristics of different things. Yeah. It's just when they combine and become too serious and get in your way, then they become something that gets analyzed. And
it makes again one of the quirks. Like I said earlier in the interview, is I have to know everything, and it will drive me nuts if I find out later that I didn't know something that I should have known before. So like if I find out a few hours after that something could have happened, like I could have done something in Eve to help someone, and they didn't tell me because they just didn't think to ping me. It's like, oh, what the fuck, dude? Drives me nuts. So I have to know everything.
Is that a remorseful, moment past, or is that would you liken it to a control thing?
I don't know if maybe it's a controlled thing. Maybe it's I don't know. I like have my fingers in everything. Like you know how like if you ever talk to Mittens, it's like the spy master aspect
Mm-hmm.
where he likes to be involved with everything. I like to be able to talk to everyone. So there isn't a thing in Eve I probably don't know about unless it's something that like some upper echelon leadership isn't talking about to me or I've heard from someone. Like I tend to find things out and our Diplos will be surprised or you'll be surprised or
Yeah.
you know.
I'm truly amazed at how much information you have at any given time about everything.
Here's an example to give you an idea of like to explain something to me that not a lot of people see is when it comes to me talking to everyone, before the big war started back in January, I knew what everyone was doing in terms of PL, NC, who was involved, what they were doing, how they were involved, all because I had made friends with someone who hated Goons as a whole. But he liked me because I always kept my promises. So in Eve, you know, sometimes in Eve, relationships on an alliance, like a massive level, can come down to a few words. And there was a guy named Blarf in Goons who used to be like our Sky Team Marshal guy. And he used to be known for working with certain groups, telling them he'll do something for them, and then not really doing it. Like he would get what he wanted out of them and then kind of like leave them to fend for themselves. But I made it a point of mine that if I say I'm going to help someone and they help me, I'm going to go help them, even if it pisses off certain people later. But I said I'd help, so I'm there. And that kind of relationship with this person became kind of a friendship. So when the Great War started, Stainwagon told NC to go screw themselves when NC offered them like $100 billion to stay out of the war. And that was because of me, because of my friendship with one of the Stain leaders.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was really good friends. If you watched the Meta show recently, there's a guy named Veronic, or Veronic, or how do you say his name? I call him Veronic, but maybe that's not how you say it. But he's one of the Stainwagon leaders, so he's one of the whole leaders, and he's a good friend of mine. And during the earliest onset of the war, he was telling me things like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you know, Gobbins wants me to hit you guys and not hit Quarius, and he's threatening me and saying, if you don't do this, I'm gonna sick NC on you." And NC's like, "Here's $100 billion if you stay out of this." And he was like, "Nah, I don't want that. I'm friends with both." And so our relationship with Stain was kind of solidified because he liked me. He couldn't stand Mittens. He couldn't stand Silent. He couldn't stand Blarf because he felt like those people represented what Blarf did. But he loved me. So the Russians hung out with me.
Well, that's interesting because NCPL, their bond is built on Grath and Vince being friends. They don't necessarily like the people around them on each other's side, but they do like each other.
Yeah, and that's exactly how this started. Like, Veronica couldn't stand a lot of the leaders we had and almost helped NCPL fight us with all of Stain. If it wasn't for me, like, just chatting them up every day. And, yeah, we became good friends, yeah.
That's interesting.
So, yeah, that's an interesting thing that can come in Eve that I don't think happens in other games. But that happened with Stain Russians, and now we're actually allies with them. Like, we're you know, they live in Ketch, we live in Delve, and if we need help, they come over, and if they need help, we go over there, so... Yeah,
it might be really important in the near future.
Yeah,
but,
well, we'll see.
Yeah. Let's talk about a little more of the past, though. I want to get back to Asakai. You were actually instrumental in that. The fight actually started over one of your, what do you call it, bloopers or something you did.
Well, you could say that, but I don't call it that. So Asakai
you didn't have information you needed, right? Something like that. I'll let you explain it. Go ahead.
So have you ever heard of a show called Air Disasters or Seconds from Disaster on History Channel?
No.
I don't know if you watch History Channel much, but there's a thing called Seconds from Disaster. And what they do is they take a disaster like Chernobyl, and then they go back in time to break down the series of events that leads to that disaster. So like a chain of events that just happened one after the other so perfectly that big explosion happened, right? And that was Asakai. Asakai was a series of events that just no one knew would line up so perfectly to cause the event. In terms of scale of the most biggest battle ever, it really wasn't that big in terms of that scale, and what could have happened because of it is what made it so famous, and the press that became behind it. So there were like, out of the top 10 battles that ever happened in Eve to that point of Asakai was like 6 or 7, but it was the press that came from it. The Game Informer picked up on the article, the Stephen Mesner article, there was just all this press on it that made it such a big deal, right? So
Well,
how
that's
it
actually
starts,
what drew in a lot of people to the game,
right?
including the beginning of Brave Newbies and just a
Yeah, and
huge spike.
the Reddit explosion from test kind of dissolving to Asakai, and then the thing about Asakai that's hilarious is, while a lot of people say, oh, it's because boat jumped instead of bridging, and that joke has been made. I got that made to me just the other day when I was at local. But that didn't cause the problem. That was what I wanted. Like almost like a bad thing to happen, but it worked out in my favor at the beginning. And here's why. I jumped instead of bridging. What happened was I was dual boxing. So you imagine my monitor here and my monitor here, and I had 4 monitors at the time. I only have 3 now. And I have my Nyx logged in. I have my Leviathan logged in, and my layout for my mods are always the same. But I wasn't really looking at the mod layout. And the plan was to jump my Nyx in as bait to see who reacts, because nobody was showing up. A spy against Goons, who was an FCON, he was working for PL, had informed us of a fight that was going to happen over a tower, and that PL was going to be there. And for months, I'm talking 3-4 months, I'd been trying to catch PL Super Fleet, because they were doing drops in the north with like 20 or 30 supers. And I really wanted to catch these guys. And so I set up a log off trap. I logged off 80, 90 supers and titans. We had 30 titans log in. A guy named Atrum, who is our reimbursement director, convos me and was like, hey, Boat, can we take titans this time? Because I'd been doing drops in low sec and killing dreads and stuff, and I never took titans. I was just taking supers. And I said, yeah, if we get 30, I'll bring titans. We got 32. We had 70, almost 70 supers. And we log off in tribute. No one sees us log off. PL didn't know we were there and how many we had. And so I wanted to jump my Nyx in as bait. And then we had 50 carriers docked, so they wouldn't appear on the map, but they were ready to jump in and rep me. This is before, I would say before the carrier menace thing really happened with PL. I'd venture to say maybe it was around that time. But anyway, so I jump in, and I click jump, and I look over, and I go, oh, fuck, I just jumped my Titan. And everyone's like, oh, don't panic. I'm like, no, not really. Okay, carriers on dock, carriers jump. By the time they landed, the carriers, they had me at full cap almost instantly, and I'm ready to jump out. Like, this is before jump fatigue. I'm ready to jump out. I'm not tackled. I got 50 carriers next to me. My Nyx is now on grid because I jump in shortly after. My Leviathan's full cap, ready to jump, and so I just casually jumped the Leviathan out. And PL takes the bait. PL drops their supers on our carriers. As soon as PL takes the bait, I say, everyone log in. Let's go. We got what we wanted. And PL only had 30 supers on grid. We drop in like 50. We drop in 30 Titans. This is before Titans could doomsday in low sec. And I thought their DPS would be like Dread DPS, you know? And I was like, okay, let's go. Neither side had Dick Tacklers. We didn't have any Dick Hictors. They didn't have any Hictors. We were both aligned out in a straight line. The first loss was a hell for us because he didn't speak up that he was being primary, so I could tell him to warp out. Soon as the super fight kicks off, Laz and the Adge come along. Both of them very enthusiastically, more. Give Boat more. This is perfect. We got PL where we want him. But like I said with the chain of events, it's before jump fatigue. It's before people understood a lot of the mechanics of tie-dye. And tie-dye kicks in hardcore. I mean, it's bad. There's 1,000 people in local climbing. The system's not reinforced. NC is at the time at the other end of Eve. Fucking Nully Secunda at the other end of Eve. Test on the other end of Eve. All managed to get there. Because with tie-dye, just more of them start piling in. At one point, Black Legion was doing a dread move-op that we had no idea about. So they had like 200 dreads and carriers on a move-op that they drop in. And so it just became all of Eve versus Goons. And we weren't able to get reinforcements there. For some reason, Laz took subcaps by gate rather than bridge. And tie-dye hit him a couple of jumps out. And it just became worse and worse. Like, we kept sending more in until it got to a point where the Matani was like, hey, we got to get out of here. And
so tie-dye is getting bad because you're in the fight. You're going a lot slower than everybody outside the fight.
Outside of the fight.
So they're able to make their way there.
Real time. We're operating 10 times slower.
Yeah.
So in a minute, in Asakai, it went by. or 10 minutes in Asakai were 60 minutes real time. So they, and back then you could jump, dock, as long as you had the fuel. Or jump, get cap. And so you could move 10 jumps. Like NC covered 10 Sino jumps all the way across from Delve, or Catch, one of the two, all the way north to Asakai in like an hour.
And this is when CCP looked at that and said, we got to stop that ability.
Yeah, that was the reason that they wanted it fixed. That was when they looked at it. It was that FanFest right afterward. FanFest was like a month or two later.
Yeah.
And that's when they decided, we need to change this. This is ridiculous. Because Asakai would have never happened that way if jump fatigue was never. It would have been an easy wipe. We would have probably killed 10 or 15 PL super carriers. We would have lost 3 or 4, and that would have been that. Because by then we had subcaps. We had Hictors on field. We were pointing PL. I think we killed, 1 or 2 super carriers. We lost, in retrospect, we didn't lose much. Where we lost a lot were dreads and carriers. We lost 5 super carriers and 3 Titans, one of which was mine. One of the Titans that died because he logged out, because the client crashed him in a safe spot, and he was logged out for 8 hours and never disappeared. This is before the 15-minute aggression thing. Like if you were aggressed while logged out, you would stay aggressed. They didn't have that. So he should have disappeared. He was there for 8 hours. He eventually got no reimbursement because CCP wouldn't reimburse during fights.
Yeah. But what this really was the precursor to a battle that would come later that was even bigger. And that was BTEC-R.
Asakai was the reason BTEC-R went as well as it did for us. And a lot of people don't know that. But back to the story. So it was like a chain of events. So TiS gets there. They decide to shoot us. All these people show up. And at the end of it all, and no fault to Mittens at this time, but at this time he had to make a call. And a lot of allies were calling for my head. And we had a thing called autocrats, which are the outlet leaders, right? They're calling for my head. They want blood. I just cost them a super carrier each. I cost them a bunch of dreads. And it was the dreads and carriers we lost that were a big deal because it was at a crossroads. If PL had really wanted us dead, they could have turned around and invaded us right there, and we would have been in some serious trouble. Like our finance team, we basically lost 900 billion in dreads and carriers, and a few supers and stuff were irrelevant, but it was the dreads and carriers. It was the numbers, hundreds of those. And so our finance team wants my head, and goons in general were like, yeah, Boat just fucked up. We want his head. So Alex had to kind of throw me under a bus at that time. So he quote unquote takes the keys. There's a famous image of that, of different boats sinking from the Italian captain, and they're all named different fleets that I could quote unquote FC. And so at the time, he kind of just had to throw me under the bus and say, okay, Boat, this is your fault. You're done. Even though Laz, the Edge, and a couple other FCs were really saying, keep going. It would have never been. It would have been, okay, PL's dropping us. Let's get out of here. There's more people coming. Let's get out of here. It wouldn't have been kept going if all these other people weren't saying, okay, Boat, we got this. It wasn't till Mittens finally made the call, 4 hours in, hey, we're not winning this. Let's get out of here. Let's accept our losses and go. And so that's when that happened. That's actually what cost me my Titan, because I went back in. My Titan was out safe. I would have never have lost it. We'd only lost 2 Titans that fight. I jumped it back in about halfway through the fight.
But you weren't going to have other people's Titans get killed and not yours.
It was more I was told.
Get it back in there.
You better not be out of system, Boat. What are you thinking? Okay. I lost my Titan, my Nyx. My Nyx had jumped out successfully. Lost cap, jumped out. Got Dictor bubbled an hour later and killed.
Oh, in the system that it jumped out?
Yeah. In the system in Asakai.
Oh.
I jumped my Nyx out of Asakai safe, and an hour later it says Hictor point, which was 10 minutes a game, and then
so the system, killed. So the game was screwing up.
Yeah, so my ship was invisible, I had jumped out and disappeared, but I was still in system, and I still got killed, and I never got reimbursed. I remember I talked about that at FanFest to CCP once. It was hilarious. They kind of laughed. But what was great about Asakai wasn't how it affected me or goons. Is what it did for the game, like you said, Brave Newbies and all that. But what it even did is, I remember I was at FanFest right after Asakai, because they paid for a lot of things for me. I got to go to FanFest for free. I got to...
Why is that? Because of Asakai?
Yeah, so Asakai made CCP a lot of money. I was at a bar when the chief financial guy at CCP came up and bought me a drink and was like, just so you know, Asakai made my first quarter. Alone. Within the week of Asakai. To give you an idea of how much money Asakai made CCP. it made them a lot of press and a lot of money, a big fight like that. Because no big fight like that had ever had the coverage that Asakai did. Because it was sold as boat messed up. The mess up that sunk the Titanic, or the mistake that did this or that, it could be marketed that way, and the press took off with it,
But did they persecute you, or were they just saying, look at the scale of this game?
What do you mean, CCP or like the press?
The press.
Oh no, the press treated it like, because I used my laughable joke in the interviews and did like my whole smiley personality when the interviews happened, and really made it sound like, I messed up. Oops. Cutesy fun. But I hated Asakai. I was pretty bitter about it for a while because, like I said, Alex, or Matani's call, I keep mind calling him Alex like his name, but Matani's call at the end was, okay, Bo, you can't FC supers anymore. No Titans or supers, and that's when a policy change came in, and then the Fountain War happened with Test, and it was, okay, Bo, now you can't fly battleships, and the Edge always had this like thing against me, and so it gave him an excuse to get rid of me, and it just became like a downward spiral for me in Goons, until I took up bombing. And that's what brought it all back.
Let's start in bombing in just a second. I want to review
sorry.
Because you were an FC for a long time. At one point, you were the only FC.
Right.
Then this Asakai happened that started a little bit of trouble for you. But what I wanted to ask you...
There's a lot more history, too.
I know, there's a ton in there. Go ahead, actually. Go ahead.
Well, one of the most important things that Asakai was never going to happen if it wasn't for something that made me, I would say, famous. I'm the FC that killed Bob, if you want to put it that way. I like to call it that.
Okay. Explain that.
So you have the Spy Masters who killed Bob as an alliance. But Bob didn't die when their alliance name got taken. They formed a new group. Dragon something or other.
It was Kenzuko.
Kenzoku. And they may have lost all their jump bridges and their Sino jammers and their SAW 4 defensible systems, but that still had to happen. You still had to kill them. And Darius made the call of abandon everything, we're going to Delve, and I was the guy who had to FC.
Actually, he didn't make the call. Somebody gave him that advice, and he made the call.
But at the end of the day, Darius says,
did it, yeah.
Like he's the CEO, so it's way Goon's work is if Mitten says this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing, right? Mm-hmm. And so Darius was that guy at the time, and he said, okay, we're going. So if he doesn't say to go, it probably never happens, right? But Bob, Delve 2 happens. I'm the head FC for this. You have the Adge, who is one of the PL FCs with Shadu. And you have a guy, what is his name? It starts with a K, I think. Anyways, the Northern Coalition, the original Northern Coalition, with Forces Mihe and Razor, their head FC. And a guy named Freeze, and I forget the other guy's name, who were FCs for Razor. And that was us. And we invade to kill Bob, and it was Shadu, I, and this other guy who... Imperium is his name.
Yeah, Imperium.
Who did a lot of the work. And that's when Bob infamously retreated into BR Dash, or PR. And I had gotten hurt at work.
That's in Aquarius, right?
No, in Delph, PR Dash.
Oh.
The infamous 1 month station camp.
I thought that was in Aquarius at 43...
No, 49-U was a big fight.
Okay.
We'll get that in a second. But PR Dash is where we camped. That's where Bob ordered the big retreat. Because PR Dash, if you ever look at Dotland, it's right in the center of Delve.
Yeah.
So you have to go through PR to get everywhere. Back when there really wasn't a prevalence of Titan bridges to get around it. There wasn't Blops bridges to do bombers around it. And they make the call to move in. And the U.S. Prime that night, I guess I'm getting a little scatterbrained here. Sorry.
My bad.
Bob owned Euro Time Zone up until that war. So the way Bob fights would go is they would win like 16 hours a day, and we would have 8 hours a day to play the game. And in those 8 hours, we had to do a lot of work. We had to shoot POS, we had to reinforce POS, kill POS, rep our own POS. It became a lot of work. And the other 16 hours, it was defend. And we couldn't really fight defend up until the reset happened and up until, PR Dash. And what happened with PR Dash is they moved everything into one system. And Shadu suggests to me and to Imperium and the Adge, what happens if in US Prime tonight we just go bubble up the station and we put bubbles everywhere? Now all their dreads are there, all their combat ships are there, and they got to undock into 400 people. 400 people was a lot back then, At one point I think the lowest we ever got to camp was 100, but It was, let's try to camp them in the station for a day and see what we can get done. And then 2 days, and then a week. And I was home from work. I think I was hurt at the time, so I was able to play a game 24/7. And I camped that for 30 days. And the reason I remember it so well is that there was a comic book called Black Cat. It's an manga comic. It's 186 chapters. And I read the entire thing during that 1 month camp. But it became infamous because every morning at downtime, Shadu and I and Imperium would get on, log into the camp, make sure all the bubbles were there. Sometimes CCP would remove them because of bugs, so some Bob guys would escape. A very infamous phrase came about in the Eve called wolf packing. That came from Lady Scarlet and Band of Brothers. They would go wolf pack, where they would take like 10 ships and go roaming, while the rest of their alliance was camped into a station. And Band of Brothers didn't get to play a game for 30 days. I don't know. Nowadays, a lot of people make the joke about a hell camp. Like, if PL does it or whatever, but nothing compared to that. That was a month. 30 straight days of they did not leave the station. They couldn't jump clone out and go get other ships because it wasn't like EVE Economy. EVE Economy isn't what it is now. Wasn't like that back then. Like 200 million ISK was a lot of ISK. I think I had maybe 1 billion all told by then. That was my net. That was my wealth, including stuff I owned, like including my carrier. I didn't have much. I FC'd from Vigils, And so we camped them in, and the FC of shooting POS, we killed over 1,000 towers by then, in that 30 days. We were killing 60 towers a day, almost.
So you had them camped in while you were taking their territory?
Well, we took everything, yeah. And back then, POS was how you took Solve. It was a +1 rule. So if you had 100 moons in the system, and I had 51 of those moons, you had 50, I owned the system. So we had to clear 100 POS from like 5 different systems in one constellation. Like one system had 98 moons, the next door would have 92, and we'd have to kill all those moons. And so it became like we would give the keys to caps to a random cap pilot who would take 30 dreads and just start sieging. We'd hand him fuel, and he would just go and go and go and go. And then 8 hours later, another guy would take over, and he would go and go and go. And then another 8 hours later, he would go. And for 30 straight days. And we cleared 1,000 POS plus. We had a POS thing that we used that was full every day, and there's lots of little like gifts you could probably find called there's one where it's like a giant bee stinger going all the way up the thing, and he's holding it like it's his dog, and it's covering the entire POS map of red POS. They were reinforced, and that was an achievement. And I would log in every morning with Imperium and Shadu, and we would just sit there and talk on TeamSpeak to these people while they camped, which was unheard of. Sir Mole didn't log in for 30 days. The first time I killed Sir Mole was because of a drunk goon during this time period. What made me famous for killing Cat Titans, this was my second Titan kill. Shrike jumps into a system that we're sieging. We had just killed Waga in an Aeon, the oldest Aeon in the game. We had just killed him on a gate, along with some carriers and dreads. And then in Western Delve, we're getting ready to kill a CSAA that belonged to Shrike. Which was unheard of back then. You didn't kill these things. These things weren't like prevalent everywhere. And it was building a Titan, and which again was a big achievement. And we, with the soft drop and stuff, if that thing was going to die because we had reinforced the tower and we were going to go kill it, and Shrike jumps in the system with his avatar, and a drunk goon. If you can imagine a sphere of a POS, Shrike jumps in here, and there's a goon and a Hector cloaked here, drunk. And we knew he was drunk. And he goes, "Hey guys, Shrike just jumped in next to me." And everyone's like, "Wait, Shrike, who's Shrike?" "Oh, Shrike!" And everyone's like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "Yeah, come on, warp over here. I got him bubbled." And everyone goes, I remember the ad screaming, "Light a Sino." And he lights a Sino between the POS shields like this. Imagine this is like the POS shield here, and Shrike's over here. He lights a Sino here. And all of our dreads jump in. Like, 80 total caps, back when 80 caps was a lot, and bump Shrike away from the POS shield, and then kill him really quickly. And I remember I got on it with my carrier kill because I was shooting a POS over here, and I had to warp in, and I got in at like the last second. And the video of him dying, the only video that I've ever seen out there, is a guy in a rail Megatron, who gets like him in like, he gets on the kill bell when Shrike's in like low armor because of the lag in the system before tie-dye. He just didn't make it there, and it shows Shrike died. It was great.
It's a good moment for you. I guess that made you kind of popular. And then I guess Asakai happened after that, many years after that.
A long time after that. So
Yeah.
we owned Delve for a long time. If you remember earlier, I said that PL losing Fountain wasn't because PL didn't adapt.
Mm-hmm.
It was because apathy. A guy named Seamus was the original PLF CEO. Seamus Razaz, and he didn't want Fountain anymore. He didn't want Solve. And he told Cartoon, who was RC at the time, that he didn't want to defend it. And so he tells Cartoon that he wants to defend it. I'm trying to defend it because I was good friends with PL at the time. Back then, because of me and Shadu and I were real good friends at the time. And Mr. V was an up-and-coming FC. And remember we had this one big fight in White Ash 2 where the decision came down to should we drop Dreads in on top of Bob? Like, should we sino into them? And we knew that there was a possibility of a black screen happening, but we figured we had more than them, so we could risk it. And so we dread bombed them. But in sinoing in the safe spot, there's a couple of old famous names. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. The guy that suggested the safe spot. We black screen. My dread black screens. Another dread black. Everyone black screens, and we get slaughtered. CO2. I remember PL, like Seamus's famous words to me and V was, "This is fucking unbelievable. You guys are fucking idiots. I'm done. I'm leaving." And the deal is we would help them defend Fountain so that when Bob came to Delve, and this is when Bob was rejuvenating and rebuilding, that they would defend Delve. And they said, "Fuck Fountain, we're out," and they didn't come help us in Delve. And it wasn't until a short time later that's when we stopped. I guess our friendship kind of started deteriorating. It was around then.
Because PL and Goonswarm were very tight before that. Right?
Oh, we were, yeah, because our PL was known, like PL got started in Delve with shooting Bob. That was kind of how they formed, as far as I remember.
Yeah, Rikoku and a few corporations. Sorry, not Rikoku. It was
Rikoku was in Bob. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not Rikoku, but it was
NESW and a couple others, or NSWE, or however the acronym for that, Northeastern SWAT, NESW. Yeah,
SWAT,
that's it.
Yeah.
So them and a couple others were the original corps. Yeah, so we were close to them, like buddy with them, and that started deteriorating after the fall of Delve when Goons lost Delve. I think that's slowly when it started to fall apart because the Northern Coalition deteriorated. They kind of just died. The original, because again, apathy. Imperium decided that he no longer wanted to defend. He no longer wanted to defend like FC. He quit.
So I see a pattern here where people don't want to defend their space.
Well, it's like the one personality, the one guy who's a really good FC decides he no longer wants to play anymore.
And that's what it takes.
That's all it takes. One guy for the whole thing to fall apart. And it's happened many times.
Yeah, Imperium was really good because I believe the Northern Coalition was being attacked. He took out like 7 or 8 PL Titans.
So me and him were good buddies. And during Max 2, I don't know if you remember the Max series of Bandit Brothers trying to invade the North. But during Max 2, the only reason I'm wealthy now in game is because of Max 2. I was a very big FC of U.S. time zone for all of the Northern Coalition. Northern Coalition, again, with my whole building friendships and things, I had access to the Northern Coalition's most private channel. I forget the name of it right now off the top of my head, but it was where all the high-level discussions happened. I was the only quote-unquote goon in there for a long time. And the old MMF CEO, which I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now.
Mihi.
Yeah, Morses Mihi, was a good friend of mine. Became buddies on Skype and Facebook, and he brought me in that channel with Imperium, and I was good friends with Imperium. And this is when the Russians invaded with PL, White Noise, and NC. And at the time they were Triumvirate, I think. Or they had just reformed into Northern Coalition or whatever they Vince came up with.
White Noise famously blew up like 100 battleships with their bombing fleet.
They had a really good bombing FC. Really good. Starts with an H. I can't remember his name right now. But very famous bomber FC. Put a lot of fear into people. I actually started. I took pride in being better than him for a period.
We'll get to bombing in just a second. You wanted to finish this.
Wow. So during this war, we were losing Euro time zone, bad, And you know, back then, you know, the old Tri would invade the north, and then they would hold space for a while, and Imperium would come along with a couple of old school, like, serious business FCs that were good at the game. They would, you know, do their war cries, and 900 NC would form up and just stomp Tri. Well, this time, Tri had Russians, and they had PL. And Death bought PL, and they got killed. And it was because they pissed off Russians. And Goons didn't really get involved out of the occasional fleet because we were friends with Russians, and we told them it was dumb. Like, you know, we talked about this in the Meta Show recently. We told the old Northern Coalition, you're invading Russians. That is dumb. You're going to piss all of them off, and you're going to die. And, well, that's what eventually happened. And when it came to defending during Max, I believe it was Max 2 / this event, we were defending during Max 2 in versus Bob, and Bob had owned M-O and 15W and UMI, and a big catfight brewed, and a big catfight happened. This is when Titans got their new Doomsday, I believe, the targeted one. I think it was the targeted one. Maybe I'm missing up. There's a video of this, so you have to look it up. But I know a Wyvern died and a Nyx died, and when the Wyvern died, I was an Addictor. And I've been to the FC, and I was FCing from Addictor because it was a different time back then because of lag and everything. And I remember I scooped up 2 smart bombs, 2 capital like officer smart bombs worth 4 bill apiece, and I sold them. I was at 0 ISK during this war. I was out of money. I sold one to NC Northern Coalition, told to Morse's Me CEO for 4 bill, and they took the other one to Jita and sold it. With the first 4 bill, I bought subscriptions for all 4 of my accounts, or all 5, with that 4 billion, you know, with Plex. And the other 4 billion, I invested in guidance systems. And this is right before PI happened. And that's what made me my 400 billion ISK. So I would have never had money if it wasn't for this fight. And the only thing that saved me was I had the loot in my Dictor as a flycatcher. And I was getting killed by a vagabond. I was tackled. It was a bomb guy killing me. And a Ragnarok pilot named Solid Cameron from PL killed the Vaga with his Titan. And I was able to warp off and save the loot. Or I would have been a broke goon.
Oh, man.
I probably could have never have streamed because a lot of the stuff I do on streaming costs money. You know, I just throw ISK at it. I do dumb things.
How much ISK do you have?
Liquid right now, 90 billion. I still have 3 million units of guidance systems, which are like 100,000 a unit right now.
You just sell them off as you need cash?
Yeah, pretty much. I haven't sold any in a long time, maybe 6 months because I'm lazy. And then, of course, I have my 2 Titans and my mothership. So I have a lot of ISK. Not a lot as some people. Some people call me space middle class, which is hilarious. But I've never taken, like, I guess I'm jumping off topic here, but when it comes to streaming, I've never taken donations in ISK. Like, I've never... Like, a lot of people are like, oh, here's $1 billion ISK to go stream. And for me, it's like, oh, I spent $1 billion. Oops.
Yeah.
I think I lost a Garmer recently that was 600 million.
Yes. Well, I want to...
Sorry.
You did have, like, a setback with Asakai inside your organization.
Yeah.
Then you came back from that by just getting back to the work and becoming a bomber pilot.
Yeah, I became bomber pilot. K-Color... So Bomber Waff is infamous in Goons because Mr. V founded it. And he took the concept of bombing to a whole new level. It was never tested in this way. It was never tested to do what's called simultaneous bombings, where you set up 4 corners of a compass, so up, down, 2 sides, do 7 bombers in each group, each squad, and then you drop 28 bombs at the same time and just evaporate a group, or up to 35 if you do 6 corners. Or not 35, 42. Yeah, from 6 directions. And the way it works is after 7 bombs are launched, the 8th bomb will kill the first 7 and do no damage if 8 bombs are deployed at once. Depend on skills, right?
Because the bombs blow up other bombs.
Bombs blow up other bombs, but very... so 2 different bomb types. So, like, if I shoot an electron bomb and you shoot an explosive bomb, when your explosive bomb or your electron bomb goes off, like this one goes off, it'll blow up this other one before this one does damage. But if you do all the same bomb type, you can do up to 7. So CCP had balanced this by doing it that way. Well, what not a lot of people realize is if you spread your bombers out all over the place in cardinal directions, and you bomb in a sphere, that sphere, if my bomb blows up over here and does 15 kilometers this way, and this bomb blows up here and goes 15 kilometers this way, you can get like a center point. So Mr. V made Bomber Waff famous for this. He was the only guy to ever do this. and he blew up a battleship fleet way back in the AAA when it was never thought possible. It became feared. You know, bombers then became this like fear that this mystical thing no one knew how to do. And Mr. V turned over the reins to a guy named K Color. You might know K Color
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
from streaming, yeah. And he became a Bomber FC, which he then, during the Fountain War, transitioned to a Cap FC. But when he became a Cap FC, he didn't have time for bombing, so he gave it to me, and that was like my escape. I went and did bombing. I did bombing fleets. I wasn't even an FC, really. And then he gave me bombing FC and taught me how to do it. And then I became obsessed with it because you could evaporate entire fleets. And that kind of rejuvenated my Eve. And then the Matani realized, well, holy shit, he's actually really good at this. And we have this bombing sig, so let's make him a director again. Now he's in charge of bombing. And then bombing became pivotal for many years since then to Goon like success. Because a bombing run can change the tide of a fight. Just done. All of Eve is scared of bombing.
Are they still?
I would say yeah. Oh yeah, way more than ever. Even with Dix, it's even better with Dix now. I won't get it. I guess I could tell you why. A lot of people learned that you could stop bombing with smart bombs, but you know there's ways to get around that. Now, I'm not going to go.
The smart bomb on a battleship basically would blow up a bomb before it could detonate.
Correct, but there's a way around the smart bomb. There's a way to deal with it. If you bomb from further away, or there's ways around it. With Dix, a lot of people got excited, and a lot of places I read got excited, going, "Oh wow, with Dix, I don't have to fit smart bombs anymore. I can just use Dix." And yeah,
let's change the word for that or explain what it is so people know.
Oh, sorry, it's an acronym for Defender Missile that can shoot bombs.
Yeah.
And CCP wanted to call it Dix, but then of course Reddit happened, so then they call it Defender Missile. If I have a fleet in Eve, there are certain fleet types that can't be bombed, and there are certain fleet types that can be bombed. And what I mean by can't is they can be bombed, but it's impractical. So to give you an example, Tech 3 cruiser fleets, Proteus's legions, can tank 64 bombs before they die. A slave set Macarial can tank 86 bombs before it dies. To give you an idea, 86 bombing is almost impossible. You'd have to do 3 waves, and the management in that, it would just be impossible. They just warp off, right? You would kill everything else well before you kill those Macarials. Logis take 35 bombs to 50 bombs, depending. But that's Macarial's armor tanked. The reason armor tank works is bombs work on SIG. A bomb has 400 SIG, so if something has smaller than that, you do proportionally less damage. And there's a formula for it. So if a bomb normally does 8,000 damage to 400 SIG, and someone has 200 SIG, it's only going to do 4,000 damage, right? Well, a Macarial is really good because a Macarial has under 200 SIG, so the bomb's doing half as much damage, and has the HP of a battleship, so 300,000 hit points, effective hit points. So when you're only doing 4,000 damage versus something that has twice as many hit points as everything else, it takes an absurd number of bombs to kill a Macarial. T3 destroyers, or cruisers again, 60, 70 SIG on something that has 300,000 hit points. So that's why people fly these. They're terrified of being bombed. It's the reason you don't see shield fleets. Gila fleets, I've evaporated a couple of those recently.
Because shield fleets are more vulnerable to bombs. They have a bigger SIG.
They have bigger SIG,
Yep.
because shields bloom the SIG. So even if they have the same amount of effective hit points, that SIG difference means a Maelstrom fleet, I can blow up what's called an Alpha fleet for most people, which is RD Maelstroms. I can blow those up with 22 bombs, which is nothing. That's four squads,
Mm-hmm.
And I'll evaporate them. Ferox fleet, 21 bombs. Cerberus fleet, 30 bombs.
So shield ship doctrines are kind of out of vogue, with the exception.
Right. That's why Ishtar's died out.
Yeah.
Because you would use a shield Ishtar fleet and I can kill them with 12 bombs.
Nice.
If you put on a micro warp drive, you turn a micro warp drive on, you're dead with 10 bombs on a battleship. A Maelstrom with a micro warp drive on, he's done. Just boom, gone.
Now, I started hearing about you again recently, or in more recent history, a couple of years ago now, when you took out with the Reavers. You used to go help out the Reavers every once in a
We
while.
took out 200 Ishtar fleet from Darkness and NC. And that video, I don't even know where it's at. It's my favorite bombing video ever. We bombed, and we've been trying to catch them for a long time. And we used Black Legion and Goons as bait, the Reaver group. We used them as bait. And we had them sit there, and Laz was FC in the main fleet. I said, look, you get them to warp into the station grid, because we're trying to take the station. And this is back during Dominion's off. So to take the station, you had to shoot it. And I said, you get them on this grid, they'll die. They're in Ishtars, they'll die. And I had a Dictor. He's probably my favorite Dictor pilot in the game. He flies all my Dictors for bombing ops. And what I do is I have him in a separate wing. So imagine a fleet structure. We have squad. I had 5 squads. And then I had the Dictor down here in another wing. And I fleet warp the Dictor at 0. And then I fleet warp the other fleet at 38 kilometers. And 38 is like the pristine number. And the Dictor has to get a bubble up. And they don't move. They're not moving, right? They have to, the only way they're going to survive is to get out of this bubble. And so the bubble goes up right as the bombers decloak. And you hear Laz start celebrating, right? As the bombs are getting launched, going, oh my God, oh my God. And when the bombs start blowing up, I'm going, oh, we fucked up. Because some of the bombs are sailing past them. Some of the bombs are not detonating because of the lag. And we found out about a minute later that the reason the lag was happening and the bombs weren't exploding is the bombs had exploded. But so much death had occurred that the game couldn't handle it. Bombing causes a lot of lag. And when things explode, it causes a lot of lag. And we vaporized the entire Ishtar fleet. 250-man fleet just obliterated. Probably 150 Ishtars, 50 Logi, just all die.
Wow.
Just absolutely gone.
It's kind of like bowling, right? You throw the ball,
you throw the ball,
and you know when you got to strike.
Well, you know when you get a strike because you get the bounty payments on the side. That's how you know you got them. That's how you know that. That's how I figure out. I don't even ask anymore. Hey, did we get any kills? Because the first thing I'll ask is, did we get any hits? Because bombers don't stay on grid after they bomb, right? They leave. Mm-hmm. Because if they get blown up before the bomb explodes, they don't do any damage, right? Which is I think they need to change. That's just my opinion. And I need to be able to bomb in low sec. I'm gonna add that. but you throw your bombs, they detonate, and okay, did we get hits? And everyone will be like, yeah, we're getting hits on lots of shit. Oh my God, yes, we're getting hits. And then you find out a minute later, okay, they're dead. And if tie-dye picks up like crazy, you know you killed everything. Yeah. And there's been times where we've gotten close. We've been a bomber short of wiping out entire fleet. We put a Hurricane fleet into the 10% structure, most of their ships.
Oh, their hearts must have been pounding.
Oh yeah, we were 1 bomber short because he died.
Well, here's the thing:
right.
You've been playing a long time. You've been playing as an FC a long time. You've been through a lot of pressure situations. You have changed it up a little bit, but why? I mean, you have every reason to be a bitter vet, kind of tired of the game. It's clear that you love this game. So what's going on there?
So for me now, it's this might sound terrible, but I make money off Eve. Not like RMT, but from streaming it. That's like my fun vacation money, right? So us streamers at TMC, we get donations, subscriptions, follows, stuff like that, and those things turn into bucks, and that bucks is like my vacation money. So the game that gets me the most attention is Eve. I'll average 200-400 viewers on Eve, whereas if I play another game, I might get my loyal 60. So I get a lot of people that watch Eve, and so I found that what keeps me going in Eve, keeps coming back to it, is I love subcapitals. Anything battleship or smaller, I have an obsession with. I love flying them. I love doing quirky things. Today I was flying around in a Harpy when no one really would fly a Harpy solo, and I was roaming 0-0 with it on stream. And I do dumb things like I did an executive Garmer. It was a paper thin Garmer with nothing but blue and purple mods. 600 million ISK, and it had the paper thin tank where a Thrasher could probably volley me. And I was killing things with it, and people were laughing. And the reason I called it the Executive Garmer is because it had these 2 executive they were named executive censored dams.
Yeah,
on it.
Those are meta dams.
They are storyline dams that nobody would ever buy because they're pointless. But the whole ship was just the most expensive thing you could put on that spot. It had the most expensive micro warp drive for a frigate, which is an A-type micro warp drive. It had the most expensive points, the most expensive damps. Everything was the most expensive. It even had instead of T2 missile launchers, which is what you would normally use, it had Dread Garistas missile launchers. And that to me is fun. I think one time my most fond experience was I did build a ship. Twitch builds me a ship, and we built a Vindicator.
You tell the audience to build you a ship.
Yeah, and we built a Vindicator, and I don't remember where that Vindicator in Lost Mail is, but if you could see it, it had a salvager, a Sino, a railgun, a laser beam, a pulse laser, a missile launcher, a ship scanner, a hull tank. It had a gyro stab, mag stab, ballistic control system, and I got a kill mill. And then I died to a 40-man fleet. Kill the jackdaw.
So that's how you're keeping it fresh. Is you're inventive with your gameplay
Yeah,
front of an audience.
Yeah, that and bombing. I run Bomberwolf still. It's going on almost 4 years of me doing Bomberwolf. I would say, yeah, about 4 years, 3 or 4 years.
Do you run? Sorry, go ahead.
And just recently, when CO2 was getting evicted, I deployed Bomberwolf to assist CO2 and bomb everything.
on their way out.
Oh yeah, we were just bombing everything. It was great.
Yeah. Laz said on his show that there was a bombing opportunity you just missed. I don't know why, and that could have turned the battle in the casino war, like the M-TAC-O battle.
Yeah. So there's a lot of times like that, and I hate that. So
that kind of criticism, you mean?
That kind of thought. A lot of people will go into a fight because of how powerful bombing is. They will, and how good I am at it. They will go into a fight outnumbered 4-1, 5-1, and then I have my 30 bombers there, and they expect us to win, and are disappointed when we don't win that fight. You know, they'll, like Asher does this sometimes, where he'll take a surf fleet, and I love Asher's. I've seen, and his obsession with surf fleets, but he'll go into a fleet, and he's really good at surf fleets, really good.
Surf fleets are really fast shield doctrines.
Yeah, real fast shield doctrines that can kite, and he went into a fight once against Pandemic Horde, where he had his 150-man surf fleet and my 30 bombers versus 100 Horde, 100 PL, 60 NC, 70 to 75 Darkness, and like one other group. So he was outnumbered like 5-1. And we're trying to hit the P-Horde staging system and fade. And I'm in my bombers, and he's like, yeah, let's do this. And I think I bombed one fleet to death. Like it was Horde's Ferox fleet or something. That Deopa has a video of this. And I bombed the destroyer fleet, but there was no way we were going to turn that tide, and we lost a lot of ships. And it's just like, the expectation is all right, we have bombers, we have one fleet, we're going to win. And the problem is with bombing is it's so reliant on me not fucking up. And there are 10 different things I got to do in fractions of a second that if I do it wrong, it leads to a failure.
It's all about timing.
Right, and there's just so to give you a rundown how it start to finish. So enemies coming out of warp. Bomberwolf tells me, okay, they're at 5 AU, they're at 1 AU. So I have guys scanning at different lengths, and at 1 AU I scan because I want to get the results on the probing right when they land. If there's no tide, 1 AU is about right for a cruiser fleet. So they're coming out of works with those Feroxes, and as they land, my probe result finishes. I tell the Dictor to decloak. I'm in Wing 2, and I fleet warp that Dictor. If I fleet warp him at the range I have set, which I have my default range set to 38, so I warp the fleet a little fraction of a second faster. Sometimes I'll fleet warp the Dictor to 38 instead of 0, so the Dictor bubble doesn't go up, and the Dictor has to warp out back in and maybe live, maybe doesn't. If he doesn't live, we have to wait 10 minutes for him to get a new ship and get back. Because fleets, if they align, they miss bombs. Bombs take 15 seconds to blow up, or 12 seconds to blow up. So if in that 12 seconds they warp off, you're not going to kill them. So you have to get them Dictor bubbled. So the Dictor has to come back, and then if I don't warp at 0, I warp the Dictor at range, that fucks up. There's been times where I thought my thing was set to 38 or 35, and it was set to 0, and I fleet warped the entire bomber fleet at 0 on the enemy, and we had to warp out. So the no bombs were launched because I would scream at them, no, don't bomb. If my probe results off by a fraction of a second, that's 30 kilometers, 40 kilometers, 100 kilometers, and we go to bomb, and the enemy's over here, and we're over here. Yeah. So bombing is such a perfection thing, where if you get it just right, they all die. Like, people look at Bomber's Bar and go, oh, bombing's easy. But Bomber's Bar they drive me nuts. I don't like them.
Why?
They drive me nuts because they make a mockery of something that's an art, right? And they drive me nuts because.
Well, what do you mean they make a mockery of it?
All right, so they make it sound like bombing is easy, like they'll do a bombing run. So this happened. So to give you an idea of what really drove me nuts, remember the This Is Eve video?
Yeah.
You remember how everyone loved that?
Sure, that was the climax of the whole video.
Okay. Well, Bombers Bar did a bombing run in there where they scream like, "Yeah, guys, go, go, go," or whatever like that. That drove me nuts. Why? They didn't ask me to participate. I think this is around the time when CCP just didn't really like TMC much and Goons, and we were out of favor, as it were. But the amount of bombing runs I had done that had obliterated thousands of ships. I mean, I wiped out an entire Abaddon fleet, 101 Abaddons from Nully in a bombing run once because they didn't jump through a gate right. You know, they didn't even think to include that in the video, but they included Bombers Bar bombing like 20 battle cruisers.
But but that was based on sound that was like, the soundtrack that was submitted.
Yeah, they submitted, but I submitted one where we killed Abaddons. Like, there's video of it, and me celebrating, and like everyone going nuts because we just wiped out 101 Abaddons that were jumping into us. You know, so that was a big deal. But what frustrates me about Bombers Bar is they claim to be the bomber group. You know, the people that make bombing happen in EVE. If it wasn't for Bombers Bar, they were doing, and their FCs at the time. I actually did like a little personal war against them because they used to live in Thera, and they might still live in wormhole system in Thera. And I made it a little vendetta of mine to kill them, and I did successfully at one point. They had these two FCs that were very arrogant. Another thing is, like I said, the way people think of themselves as better than someone. I don't like that. And these two did. They thought they were better than anyone in EVE when it came to FC and bombing. And their version of bombing involved using torpedoes, right? Dropping on someone, torpedoing a carrier, and getting out. It wasn't really bombing. But CCP had made them famous for bombing, even though they really didn't do it. And so they talked about how they were just better than Goons. And so I took Bomberwaff into Thera, the only time we've ever deployed into a wormhole, and we camped them to a station and would follow them around and killed their Black Ops battleships and made it so that they couldn't do what they wanted to do for like 3 weeks until both their FCs quit. They quit the game.
Oh, really? Are they
yeah,
back?
I don't know if they're back now or one of them is, but I stopped keeping track of Bombers Bar ever since.
But you hazed him out of the game for...
I hazed him out because he used to talk shit like I was nothing. And Bomberwaff was nothing. And they were the premier bomber group, and that was that. And so I just hazed them until they just... Like, it became like a drive for me. I was on summer vacation from school, and I just fucking farmed them. I took destroyers, I used spies, because they're an NPSI group, so anyone could join them, you know?
So what I get from you is this. I mean, you're very jolly and happy... persona, but you were very competitive.
Like, don't piss me off.
Inside, you were very competitive. When you get serious about serious topics, not just now, but on all my experience in talking with you, like it's a strange, and this is one of the more interesting things about you, that that you are two personalities. When you talk about women, you don't talk in terms of a nerd, right? You talk in terms of a man, being. I can't go too far into this, but you basically talk like a man about women. You don't talk like a nerd, like you're impressed by them and they glow in the dark and stuff like that.
My girlfriend's amazing. She plays games with me and watches movies with me and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but you're fully like, a
normal person.
Yeah, not a nerd.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So what's going on there? What's do you think people underestimate you is what I'm getting at?
Yeah, so people look at me like, because they see that persona. They see that, Bo's just a dumb idiot. You know, he's just I hate the word retarded, but people like to use it about me because that's the persona I push out. But what they don't realize is if I take things serious and I really, really want to do something in a game like EVE, I'm going to do it. So to give you an example, the first time I killed Sir Mole, remember I told you about that drunk goon?
Mm-hmm.
That killing of Bob and me killing Sir Mole came about because I got mocked by Sir Mole, by Molly. A spy released an audio log of my first carrier death was a Thanatos. I was repping a station service, and I wanted to play TF2, Team Fortress 2, and I only had one monitor at the time, and Goons I didn't really pay attention to Jabber, because I had one monitor, and I didn't have EVE audio on, and I was within dock range of a station, and Sir Mole dropped his Titan, Waga's Aeon, and a bunch of capitals and subcaps, and proceeded to kill my carrier. And I woke up in the middle of Syndicate in PF Dash. I think it was PF Dash, in a pod. And I was pretty sad. And a couple days later, or a couple months later, a goon by the name of Cartoon had a spy in EXE back then, linked me an audio clip of Sir Mole killing me and celebrating the fact that I was dumb and AFK in my carrier on a station. And the director at the time was a guy named Zastro. He told me it was okay to go AFK and rep, and I wasn't going to have to worry. But Zastro had thought was that I was paying attention to Jabber. He didn't realize only had one monitor, and I was playing a full screen game, like TF2. So I lost my carrier, and it pissed me off that he mocked me. And when I had the opportunity to get back at him, I dismantled everything he had loved in the game. I dismantled Bob. I shot POS day after day, hour after hour. I SC'd every single POS he would shoot. I would gun with a guy named XTTZ, a really famous goon, logistics guy. I would shoot POS. I would gun 16 hours a day. I'd play the game. I just destroyed his alliance, everything he liked about the game. I destroyed his Titan. I played the audio clip that he made when I killed his Titan. So if I get serious about doing stuff, I guess it's almost like a personality trait in real life too, because that's the way college worked out. Like I wanted to prove someone wrong, so I graduated college. I graduated with honors, 3.9. You know, back when I was first in school, I graduated with a 2.1, like barely. Like I was like 600 out of 800 in my class because I didn't care about school. And the only reason I graduated when I did is because I just took all my tests and never did homework. I got C's because I didn't want to try. I could have got A's, right? But when I got to college, I was like, oh yeah, I want to be an honor student. So I got all A's.
So you're driven. You're driven in a
very,
lot of times.
Yeah, very self-focused. I have a lot of self-focus. Like when I go to the gym now, I go to the gym 6 days a week. I gotten fat because of the whole I quit wrestling thing I told you at the beginning. So I got fat, and so I started going to the gym. And when I started going to the gym back in April now, I just decided I didn't want to be fat anymore. So I go to the gym 6 days a week, and I've lost weight, and I'm lifting more now than I've ever have in my entire life. You know, at the age of 30. So. And that's the same way I treat video games. If it becomes something that I find interesting or obsessive about, it's going to happen, and I'm going to find a way to do it, and I'm going to do everything I can to do it. I have a new project I'm starting on soon here that might yield some hilarious results. But that'll happen maybe a month or so from now. That's my new drive, I guess. But yeah, so stuff like that will happen in EVE, and I think EVE is probably the only game I can do that in I've ever played, where I can really go about dismantling someone's video game life, you know, because they wrong me in some way. I think the Matai does this sometimes, you know.
What do you mean?
We're almost like, you know, like have you ever read any of his articles from Sins of a Solar Spy Master?
Yeah.
On Ten Ton Hammer, he talks about how spying was so big for him, and you know, doing spying and just kind of ruin alliances from behind the scenes. I like to dismantle someone. Like like I said with the Bombers Bar thing, I made them not enjoy the game for a while. You look at what's that one recent group that does roaming? They were famous for about a year.
Not Spectre?
Spectre Fleet.
Yeah, Spectre Fleet.
Run by Triumvirate. The Jane Fillion.
Yeah.
I don't like that guy. And I used to have a lot of enjoyment in just ruining every fleet he would do. And anyone can join their fleets. And goons are completely banned from them, but I would still spy on them. I would still go on their fleets and bomb them. I remember I got a lot of hate within the last year because they were doing a fleet for like a memorial roam, and I don't believe in those. I have a very strong opinion on
Tell me why you don't believe in those.
It's a video game. It's Space Pixels.
It's not a proper place to remember your friends online?
Right. If my friend dies that I play video games with, I'm not going to tell anyone on Reddit. I'm not going to do an op for him. You know, when Valorant passed, I was very sad, but I didn't go light 1,000 signos for it. You know, I went and spent real life with friends that knew Valorant. You know,
but would you have bombed a Vile Rat memorial?
Oh yeah, I did. I killed a wyvern that was part of a Valorant shoot blues tell Valorant thing that we started. We haven't done that in a long time now, but we used to do a thing every year as kind of like an anniversary where we would shoot blues and tell Valorant, because Valorant had this big thing of he was the head Diplo. So if you shot a blue, you had to report to him, and he was very serious about you fucked up, and if you fucked up, he was going to murder you, and if you weren't the fuck up and you were doing it justifiably, and there was a few times he did that for me where it was justified that I shot that blue, he would jump all over that blue like it was the blue's fault, and he was a cool dude. But if someone did a memorial for that and I was an enemy to Goons at the time, I would have done that, no problem. Because it's a video game, right? And so what I did was, they had a memorial of Rome for a guy who was known to enjoy getting blown up. He would just do fun fleets, and they would die, and he had fun. And so I told Bomberwolf, hey, there's a memorial going to happen of Spectre Fleet. Jane Fillion's tried to run it, and Jane Fillion had planned on taking that memorial up to shoot soft structures.
They belong to you.
Yeah, they belong to us. So I told Mittens right away, hey, I'm going to go AWOX this. I'm going to put a character in that fleet. I'm going to give warpins, and I'm going to smart bomb them. And I tried to, like 4 or 5 times. I pipe bombed them with bombs. I tried to pipe bomb them with rocks. I tried to put a guy in their fleet. I put all of our rocks in their fleet by inviting each one individually and warping them to 0 until they noticed we were coming out of warp and went, oh shit, and warped off. I had a guy recording their comms. I was recording their comms. They knew I was streaming their comms. We just went to a fun length. I had fun with it, you know? But they took it to Reddit and were like, man, Boat really, really broke this taboo. And I was very vocal on my stream about it because I don't think you should take a video game and use it like a funeral or real life memorial. Like, it's just that doesn't sit well with me. Like, if you want to remember a friend, that's cool to remember him. Go on TeamSpeak and get drunk and talk about him. We've done that before. You know, or go out in real life and meet up and talk about him. You know, like what we did with Big Country, where we sat and talked about Big Country on the Open Com show. I think I was at the gym when I got teared up by it, you know? Mm-hmm. Like I called in from the gym, or I texted in from the gym, or I sprinted home. I think I sprinted home and got on and was like, hey, I want to tell you this story about Big Country. And it almost caused me to cry, you know? And I don't cry very much, but yeah, so stuff like that. It's a video game, right? Like if they would have done a Big Country roam and he was a cool dude with us, I would have blown that up. It's base pixels, and people get really angry at me for this. Really angry. I got a lot of hate mail. There was 1,000 comments in that thread about how much I was a disgraceful human being, and it's like, no, I'm not. It's a video game. You know?
Yeah, in some sense, you're disgraceful for bringing this real life into this immersive environment. Like, it doesn't belong. You're bringing the foreign object in, and this is one of the objections you guys have to charities, right? Like, you're bringing this.
Yes.
You're bringing this real life, painful thing into this immersive game that we're trying to escape our lives from, and you're making us have to face reality.
Like, we made this joke about Burn Jita for kids, BJ for kids, on the show once. Remember on the One Meta show? And we're going to be doing that after the new year still. We're still working on that. We've just been busy. But the Burn Jita for kids charity joke, where we would kill a freighter for every charity. Like, that would be our charity donation, was to kill a freighter, you know, or some mockery. And it's the idea that, there's been goons who have had some serious life problems, you know, and needed help, and they would do a charity, but it has blown up into a bad thing. I don't ever get involved in that anymore. I mean, yeah, I eventually, you know, I'll read something and it'll break my heart, but I don't really get involved in that stuff in video games. Maybe in real life. You know?
Well, I think it's a slippery slope because you have a game where you can leverage your real life skills, your real life personality, your real life charisma, your real life wealth. You can all leverage this into the game to be more competitive. And I think people are trying to leverage something back out.
Right. Yeah. There's people that abuse that. I'll call them out on this. And I don't mind saying this, and a lot of people might, you know, give me hate for this one too, is a guy by the name of Sword Dragon. He did this once, and this is just despicable to me, but he needed a new computer. So he started a GoFundMe in his alliance to get a new computer, and got like £3,000, which is British money, to buy a new laptop from his alliance.
But what about, isn't that okay if you spend a lot of your time providing entertainment for them? Like, wouldn't that be okay for you because you do bombers all the time? You do all this work for them.
If somebody said to me, I'm buying you a new computer, Boat, I didn't ask for it. That's the difference.
You think asking is wrong?
I didn't like take my cup and stick it out there and say, give me your money, please. I need it. because I don't believe I need it more than anyone else, right? Here's something that no one knows. I'm a substitute teacher right now because, again, I get on these kicks where, like, when I wanted to go to school, I graduated college with honors, top teacher, could probably teach anywhere, but right now I don't feel like teaching full time, so I substitute. I make the same amount of money really without the benefits, and then I stream. And whenever I'm not substitute teaching, I'm streaming and playing video games. And right now I'm organizing real life stuff with my girlfriend, and the thing is it's like choice, right? And even if I don't have tons of money like some of my friends, I would never say to one of my friends, oh, I need your money more than you do. And I feel like that's what Sword Dragon did when he got that laptop, is that he started to GoFundMe and said, okay, all you people in my alliance that I've provided content for are going to buy me a laptop now. And he abused that, and I don't like that. Now, if someone, like I said, if someone came to me or you tomorrow, and someone showed up to you tomorrow and said, "Hey, Battle, we love your stream. Here's a brand new Lenovo laptop," that wouldn't be a bother me, because that's someone giving you something. You didn't go ask them for it. You didn't stick your hand out, right?
Well, I have a Patreon, so I guess that is sticking my hand out. But Patreon is like a sponsorship thing where you can donate money to a certain thing, but.
But that's different though. That's something. I don't think that's the same.
Somebody said, here's $100 for your show, and I said I can't accept that. That's too much. This was in Vegas, and
right.
He said, okay, well, if you can't accept this, then accept this risk. I'll put it on the table on roulette. If it wins, you take the winnings. You took nothing from me. If it loses, I lose the money. Not your problem. I said, okay, that's agreeable. And it won, and I got the $100.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Okay, so I'll never say who this is. He won't let me. But one of the guys who watches my show is an IT guy, and he upgraded his computer, and so he sent me some new RAM, right? Well, it wouldn't work. We spent a good 12 hours trying to get to work. So he said, you know what, fuck this. And sent me a brand new processor, motherboard, and RAM to replace what wasn't working, because he didn't like the fact it wasn't working, and I was a friend of his. And immediately I'm like, oh my god, like, did that just really happen? Like, holy shit, it's like a brand new computer almost. And he's like, hey man, you're a good dude. And I'm not, don't worry about it. And it's like and that's so I didn't ask for that. I never said to him, hey, I need a computer. And I felt bad taking it. I think I've thanked him probably 1,000 times in the last.
But that was your friend giving you something,
right? And in video games, I don't mind that. So, like, example, I use this example, and I'm very, very to the point about this, and this might upset people. Again, controversy. I don't like the idea of a streamer who does like a subtrain type thing. So for those that don't know, a subtrain is where it's like a little thing that pops up on the screen where it says like 1 of 10 subs for the day. And there's streamers out there who will literally stop their stream, and not stop it, but like not play the game that people are there to watch until they get to that 10-person sub mark. It's almost like holding them hostage, right? If I get a donation or a sub, I'm happy and I'll thank them and I'm overjoyed and I jump up and down, and if I get a resub or a sub, I'll squeak that little bee I have. Where'd it go? I'll show you. I have this thing. So like if someone resubs for 20 months, I squeak this 20 times.
You guys squeak it once. Okay.
So I'll squeak it. It's a squeaky V. But, and then that's that thing. And then if someone donates money, I'm like aghast. It's like someone donated $25 on Saturday. I was like, oh my God, that just happened. So it's always shocking to me that someone would want to do that. But I'm always reminded by a friend and my girlfriend at the same time that it's almost like someone's watching a TV show. If you imagine someone like watching HBO, they pay a subscription to watch HBO. So they're paying to watch me like they would pay to watch HBO. So I'm their HBO. I'm their entertainment for the day.
But it's built on trust, because you're saying, I'm doing this anyway. You can pay if you want.
Yeah, if you want. Like, you don't have to. They don't have to subscribe to my show. They don't have to donate.
But they do to HBO. You have to in order to get access. That's the thing. This whole process. This whole process is very tricky because people want free content. They want free music. They want free video. They want what you do for free. But you can't do it for free, or it's hard for you to do it for free. It's hard for musicians.
Right.
So there's a balance in there. How do you correctly ask for money without taxing people too much?
One thing that drives me nuts is I'm required to ask once in a while, like, don't forget to subscribe. But I hate doing it.
Yeah,
I always feel awkward when I do it.
I can't do it. I don't do it.
Yeah.
I should do it because I'd probably make
I
more.
mean, if I remember to do it, I'll just say my little, like, don't forget there's buttons down there to do it, and you can if you want to, and whatever. But back to the thing is that when it comes to things like GoFundMe's and stuff, goons will research that shit like crazy.
Yeah.
Like, they will put investigators on it. People who are investigators in real life will get in there and find out legit things. And Imperium News Network found one recently that wasn't legit. It was a scam. That one chick, I forget her name.
Well, it wasn't. It turns out it was.
Well, it was a dude.
It was Olivia. The Olivia investigation.
Yeah, Olivia investigation.
A little team of us went ahead and did that, and I wrote up that article. That was.
Yeah, and we had a goon within the last couple of years who did like a GoFundMe because his wife was sick, and then he blew it all on casinos.
Yep.
So you have things like that happen. Group. Yeah, and it's scary. And so whenever I see, like, when I saw, like I said, I saw Sword Dragon do this for a laptop. We mocked him for a long time. I still think it's terrible because I don't know, but I mean, like, if someone's sick or hurting, like, I'm not gonna say all GoFundMe's are bad, but I mean, if you imagine an example recently, my best friend's nephew, my best friend, I've known him for 20 years, grew up with him. His little nephew has the seizures thing, and for him, marijuana actually helps this 3-year-old kid not have seizures. So they had to up and move because the state of Florida didn't allow marijuana smoking. So they moved to Denver for a while. And they did a GoFundMe, and I think it ended up raising $20,000. And that's a big, awesome thing, you know? Or like a GoFundMe for a video game. But a GoFundMe to get a guy a laptop because he provides you content in a video game.
But you don't make that distinction. I mean, D4 or the Care for Kids, I think it is, you guys still make fun of that, but that's about kids
but see,
in hospitals playing
We
Eve.
don't know if that's real, though.
I think it needs to be verified, but...
It needs to be it's never been verified. And on top of that, the Care for Kids group owns Solve. They're renters. And I would say 99% of the corporations in that group are Russian renting corporations that just farm with, like, Nixes and stuff. They get killed routinely by wormhole guys. They pay rent to X-Death to own Solve. They recently dropped down their Solve by half.
It might be a mistake to mix the charity with the Solve gaining and the ratting and all that stuff.
And the guy that's involved with that was also deeply involved with casinos and Lenny, and that very first Keepstar that was dropped in Losec in Manila was dropped by them. And Manila, or however you say it. I say Manila. I think Manila because I always think of
Philippines.
No, yeah, like the thrill of Manila. You know?
Oh, yeah, the Philippines.
Like yeah. So I always think of that whenever I think of that system. But when they dropped that, they dropped it as like, this is a charity thing, so you can't shoot it. Which again brings me back to my point of memorial roams and not shooting those. Like, I find that absurd. It's a video game. Go blow the motherfucker up, you know?
Okay. So that's not... Yeah, don't bring the sacred into here because this is a game about blowing things up.
Because of... And I say this has a lot to do with Reddit. Again, this might get me hate because I do post on Reddit sometimes. The Reddit idea or mentality on our Eve is if you touch a charity, you're a bad person. So a lot of people in Eve will not do something to be politically correct so they don't get that hate from Reddit, because Reddit is now the dominant thing. Hell, CCP posts their things on Reddit before it goes anywhere else. Like, I find out my news for the Meta Show every week by going to Reddit. I will go through like 20 pages of Reddit every week. Saturday morning, I sit there and go through, okay, where's the news article at? And then I'll dive into that news article. I'll go through comments and see if it's, newsworthy, because that's the only place where news is. And I think that's the fear now in Eve, is that if you do something that's going to cause Reddit to hate you, all of Eve's going to come down on you. Like, the whole world's going to come against you. And I tend to buck that a little bit.
Well, let's wrap up by asking you what's next.
Yeah, sorry. It's
no,
so
no,
long.
This is great. Gosh. We wanted to get to know you. That's what this is all about. I just want to ask you what somebody coming into this game, you've been here a while. When you look at them, you can't explain what the game's about, but what can you tell them about the real Eve?
Newbies. And it has a lot to do with my teaching, but I do ops with newbies now. And what can I tell them about Eve? you can do what you do in Eve that you can never do in real life. The example I use is a guy named Aerith, who's a CSM member. He does things in Eve Market that are illegal in real life. Pyramid schemes and Ponzi schemes and things like that you would get arrested for and sent to prison in real life, you can do in Eve. And there's no other game like that. So as a newbie in your little Rifter with your 100,000 ISK, you can do something that will change the course of a video game's empires. Like, you can everything. I was a newbie once, so everyone's a newbie. All of Eve's most famous people started somewhere. You know, you just got to do it, and it's a lot of fun. You just have to get past the beginning.
So does it does Eve allow you to put a mask on to hide who you really are, or
It can, yeah.
or
Oh
does-
yeah.
or is
Oh
it the
yeah.
opposite?
Oh no, it allows you to. It allows people that are a little crazy to bring out that crazy. Like the true, like that personality they might hide from their family, they can bring out in the video game. Or that personality they hide from their friends, they can bring out in the video game, like Eve. Or the other way around, they can be themselves, but be themselves in ways that aren't allowed in real life. So a banker can do things that he would normally get in a lot of trouble in real life for in the real world money market that he can do in Eve's money market. Or a guy can go camp in an alliance that's small and insecure that maybe is a streamer, and you can go harass that streamer that in real life that's blackmail, harassment, and all this other stuff. Things like Code that do mining permits for high-sec people, or
Which
stream
don't
sniping,
exist.
which don't exist. I mean, they're not real, but they do them. You know, they say that.
It's like
Or
elevator passes in a one-floor building.
yes, exactly, things like that. Or if you ever seen the movie Hackers, where she tells him the pool on the roof, and he goes on the roof and there's no pool and the door locks shut and he gets stuck up there and then it rains. You know, things like that you can do in Eve that you can never do in another game. There's no other game out there like that. Maybe a game like Rust, or like first-person shooter like a Rust or H1Z1, but those have novelties. They're first-person shooters, so they wear off. Eve has everything. There's so much to do in Eve that you'll never finish it all. There's still stuff I discover every time I play it.
Well, what is the last thing you would want people to think about you? Let's say you stop playing Eve. Like,
If I stopped playing Eve, what's
Yeah.
the last thing I'd want them to remember? That I was fun. So, like, you know, if they look back on a boat, when they think of the word boat, I want them to think of fun. Like, hey, like I went on this boat up and it was fun, or boat blew me up and it was hilarious, or I saw boat streaming and it was funny. And just if it makes a person smile when they think of my name, then I did something good. You know.
yeah, that's great,
Because
man.
Eve is a way, like I said, Eve's a way to do things that you can't do in real life. I can't make the whole world happy in real life, but I can make everyone happy watching my stream. And I've had people tell me that. I've had PMs, and I won't reveal names, but one last thing here. I've had guys PM me, girls, guys, and tell me that I made their day so much better when they're dealing with the loss of a house, or they're dealing with this, and they came and watched my show, or they came on my fleet, and instead of being serious business, I made it fun, or I got them blown up and it was the most fun they've ever had. That's a phrase I hear a lot, and that's, I think, what keeps me playing it, is that I can bring fun to someone who is probably having a really bad day. You know, there's too many bad things in this world to not have fun. You know, and I think Eve allows that. So yeah.
All right, man. Thanks, Boat. Really
Cool.
appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome.